Hello, everybody, and good morning. Uh, for those of you that don't know me, this is your first time here. I am Brad, one half of Steel City MTG. The other and better half, Steph, is here with us, though you can't see her right now.
Hello.
And we are Steel City MTG. Now, normally you can catch us here streaming limited games. We are big proponents of the idea that you get the most fun out of playing game, or get the most fun out of opening booster packs if you play games with them. And we try very hard to dispel the notion that you have to have a whole draft box and a whole drafts pod in order to do so. You really just need one friend and a couple of booster packs between you two, and you can play some fun games. But this stream is a little bit different. This is one of my favorite streams that we do. We call it Judge Talk in a Booster Box. And on these streams, I pick some facet of Magic the Gathering's rules, and we do a deep dive on it, pick it apart, really try to understand it so that we can all be better Magic players, more knowledgeable Magic players, and we can approach this game with more confidence. And periodically throughout the stream to give us some time to rest our brains, digest the information we're learning, ask some questions if we have them. We will be taking periodic breaks throughout to open some shiny Magic cards from some collector booster packs. So today we're going to be talking all about the process of casting and resolving spells, plus a handful of related topics. And Steph is going to be opening some Secrets of Strixhaven collector booster packs.
Yeah.
We are very excited. Now, to clarify, today we'll be talking about how individual spells and abilities are put on the stack and how individual spells and abilities resolve. We're not really going to be talking about the stack as a whole. However, we have done a Judge Talk on just that in the past. If you want to know more about that, a video of it can be found on Gerudo's YouTube channel. Steph's going to drop a link in the chat for you. There it is. So please go check that out if you want to know more about priority, turn structure, and the stack. Speaking of Gerudo, they are our sponsor for this stream. They are a new digital home for the TCG community. We will talk more about that on our first Boosty break, but they are the ones who provided us with the packs we'll be opening today. We are very thankful for their involvement in supporting our content, and we think that you should check them out because we think you'll like them.
Thank you, Gerudo.
Yes, thank you, Gerudo. Now, one more thing. We want this stream to be interactive. This stuff is going to get pretty complicated, and my hope is that I can help it make sense to you. So if you have questions at any point, we want you to be able to ask them. There is a chat redemption called Ask Brad a Question, and if you use that chat redemption to ask your questions, it will put your question in a special little queue where I will be easily able to find it. That will make sure that it doesn't get lost in the stream that is chat. And I will do my best to answer it when I see it or when there's a break in the action, but certainly I will be going through these during our Boosty break since we'll have a little bit of time to talk about things like that. All right? Great. So if we're all on the same page and we're all ready, let's jump into it. We're going to do a quick knowledge check. We're gonna to give you kind of an idea of what kinds of things we're going to be talking about today, I want to pose a scenario to you. So say you control an Ashnod's Altar, an artifact that lets you sacrifice a creature to get 2 colorless mana. You control a Goblin Electromancer. This is a creature that makes your instants and sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast, and you have but a single untapped island. Now what you want to do is you want to cast this spell, Unexpected Assistance. This is an instant. It has Convoke, and Convoke, if you're not familiar, means you can tap your creatures to help you cast the spell. Now, you're not really sure if you can. It looks like if you squint your eyes and you think it over, it seems like you might be able to, right? Like you could tap your island to pay for one of the blue pips. You could tap Goblin Electromancer as for Convoke to get the other blue pip. Goblin Electromancer itself reduces the generic cost down to 2, which you might be able to pay with Ashnod's Altar, but there's kind of a lot of moving parts here. So I want to know what you all think. Give this, let this scenario, these questions, let it, give it a good think while we get into the first topic or the first series of topics. We're going to come back to this. So, but just ruminate on this a bit. as we're talking through some things. So this stream is going to be divided mostly into two sections. In the first section, we're going to talk about putting things on the stack. That's going to be the steps of casting a spell, the steps of activating abilities. We're going to talk about how triggered abilities work. Then in the second part of this stream, we're going to be talking about how things come off the stack, the steps for resolving spells and abilities. We're going to talk about how permanents enter the battlefield with some more specifics on given to specifically enters the battlefield triggers. Now we're going to split it up this way because there are a lot of choices that are made when you're casting a spell or putting a thing on the stack, and there are a lot of choices and considerations associated with resolving spells and abilities and taking them off the stack. But the in-between time is kind of like a little bit of a limbo, right? The game is largely content to ignore spells and abilities that are on the stack between the time when you're casting it and when it's resolving. Now, in 99% of cases, maybe even 99.9% of cases, right? The rules for casting a spell or activating ability are pretty straightforward, right? You cast spells all the time, up 20 or more spells in a single game even, and not once have a question about how all this stuff works, right? However, Magic is, it's a game with a long history, right? It's got 33-ish years of cards that weren't all necessarily designed with each other in mind. So the rules need to be robust to account for that 1% or 0.1% of edge cases that can cause problems, right? So this stream mostly is for those edge cases, right? If you're just going to be slinging lightning bolts, you can continue slinging lightning bolts the way you've always slung your lightning bolts, right? But if things get weird or complicated or crunchy and you're not sure how to proceed, then knowing that there is a specific set of steps for this thing can help you piece through what you're supposed to be doing. All right?
Yeah, advertising for the stream was a little difficult because a lot of people just don't even know that there are steps to cast a spell. Like it's so like I guess it's so kind of like under wraps from like how most players interact with the game that most players don't even know that this exists. But turns out this can help you be the actually person at your
which
Commander
we love
Pod
being.
table. Yeah, which we love being. So we're gonna get into the weeds a little bit here, friends, but I promise you it's gonna make you a better Magic player.
Yes. And then like I said, like again, this is for when you are not sure how something works and you scratch your head. You don't have to start casting all of your spells this way. So, casting spells. There are a grand total of 9 steps to casting a spell, divided into 2 broad categories, right? Part 1 is all about proposing the spell. This is where we're going to make all of the decisions for the spell, describe what the spell is going to do. And then the second part is actually paying for the spell, figuring out how much, what costs you have to pay, getting the resources to pay those costs, and actually paying the costs. So, part 1, propose the spell. The first thing you do when you're casting a spell is you propose the spell and move it to the stack. Now, this physically tends to be the last thing we do, right? Usually we're out here tapping our lands, saying, I'm going to cast Lightning Bolt and just slamming it on the table, right? But technically speaking, moving the spell from wherever it is, usually your hand, to the stack is the first step. And there are some reasons why, or there are some things why this could come up. We'll talk about those in a little bit, but just know, step 1, put the thing on the stack. Then step 2 is going to be all about making choices, right? Step 2 is where we declare every decision that we want to make as it relates to this spell's resolution, with 2 big exceptions that will happen in steps 3 and 4, and we'll talk about those on the next slide. So, the kinds of choices we're going to be making. If your spell is modal, such as with Abrade, where the spell says choose 1 or choose some number of modes, this is the step where you will declare which mode you're going to be doing. If you intend to splice a spell onto the one you're casting, such as with Splice onto Arcane, you would make that choice now. Splice onto Arcane, and splicing is not a very common mechanic. I don't even think I've probably spliced a spell or 2 in my life, but maybe you haven't. if you want to know more, you can look into it. But if you would like to splice something onto the spell, you would do that here. Then, if you intend to pay any alternate costs, such as Overload, or additional costs, such as Kicker, you would announce your intention to do that now. If your spell has any variable costs, the most common of which is going to be an X, this X mana symbol, right? Like on Mindspring, you would declare what the value of X is going to be. Then, lastly, if your spell has any Phyrexian mana symbols or hybrid mana symbols, you would announce which half of that symbol you intend to pay. Note that we are not paying any of these costs yet. We're just announcing what we intend to do when it comes time to do those things. Okay? Then we get to step 3, which is where we will be declaring our targets. Now, a lot of spells that have targets will only target one thing, but some spells, like Eerie Interlude, for example, could target multiple things. So the first step in declaring your targets is determining the number of targets your spell will have. And then after you have done that, you will actually declare what those targets will be. Now, there are some rules for declaring your targets, right? When you are declaring your targets, any given object or player can only be targeted once for each time the word target appears in the rules text. So for example, Reap What Is Sown here is an instant. It says put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 3 target creatures. At most, Reap What Is Sown could put 3 +1/+1 counters on creatures, but you have to have 3 separate targets in order to do that, because Reap What Is Sown, or the word target, only appears once, right? You can, with Reap What Is Sown, only target 2 creatures, but each of those creatures will still only get a single +1/+1 counter. Conversely, something like Common Bond is an instant. It says put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. The word target appears twice in the rules text, so you could target the same creature twice. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Every time the word target appears, you could only target a given thing once. But sometimes the word target appears multiple times, and you could target the same thing multiple times, right? Additionally, when you're declaring your targets, you have to fulfill as many requirements as possible, right? Any effect that says you have to target this thing, right? Such as Coalition Honor Guard, and you are not allowed to violate any restrictions, something that says you are not allowed to target this thing, such as Hexproof. Now, something like Coalition Honor Guard, right? Requirements don't come up a ton. So like Coalition Honor Guard here, it says, while choosing targets as part of casting a spell or activating an ability, your opponents must choose at least one flag bearer on the battlefield if able, right? So if I was casting Common Bond and you controlled a Coalition Honor Guard, I would have to declare Coalition Honor Guard as one of my targets. That is a requirement. Conversely, if you had a Benthic Giant, I would not be allowed to choose Benthic Giant as a target because it can't be the target of spells or abilities I control. So where this requirements versus restrictions comes into play is, say, for example, you had a Coalition Honor Guard and it was hexproof. Right? There is a requirement that says I'm supposed to target Coalition Honor Guard. There is also a restriction that says I am not allowed to target Coalition Honor Guard. The restriction wins out, right? This is one of those examples you'll hear Magic players talk about can't beats can. It works just the same way here. Again, this will not come up very often. People aren't out here playing a lot of flag bearers, but it might happen. So now you know. So we've declared our targets. In step 4, is the step where we divide or distribute effects among targeted objects. A good example of this is Rolling Thunder, right? This is a sorcery for X red. It deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. So after we have declared what targets we want to choose for Rolling Thunder, we would declare how we want to divide Rolling Thunder's damage. Now, importantly, as you're dividing this damage, each thing you target has to receive at least one of whatever you're distributing, right? So Rolling Thunder says you can have any number of targets, but if you're casting Rolling Thunder for X equals 4, and you have declared 5 targets for Rolling Thunder, then at least one of your targets will be receiving 0 damage, and that's not allowed. So keep that in mind. Also, there are some spells, we'll talk about them a little bit later, that have you dividing or distributing effects, usually +1/+1 counters or damage, among some number of untargeted objects. For those spells, you will announce the distribution of them as they resolve, right? This step is for if you're distributing effects among targeted things, you announce that now. And again, we'll talk about those when we get to the resolution part of the presentation, right? Okay, so we've put the spell on the stack. We have made all of our choices for the stack, including its targets and how its effects will be distributed. The last step of this proposing the spell is a legality check. So the game is going to look at every decision that you've made for this spell and is going to check to see whether it's legal. Are your targets legal? Have you chosen legal modes? Is your distribution of effects legal? If any of the decisions you've made up to this point are illegal, then the game will revert to the game state immediately before the spell was proposed. If, however, you have made all of your decisions have been legal, then we can move on to the next phase. Now, there's one more note I want to make about how we make choices for spells before we continue, and that is you can take into account choices you're going to make later in the process of casting a spell if those choices would have an impact on the current choice you're making. This rule is, if you look actually in the comprehensive rules, this rule is kind of broken up into a couple different places, but this is sort of the heart of the issue. Let's look at an example. Inscription of Abundance here is a modal spell. It says choose one, but if you kicked the spell, you can choose any number of modes instead. Now, if we remember from when we are making choices, the first choice we make is the modes for our spell, and we don't declare whether or not we are going to pay an additional cost like Kicker until later in the process. However, you are allowed to say, hey game, I know it says I can only choose one mode, but I'm going to kick this spell, I promise. So I'm going to choose multiple modes now, and you'll see when we get to the part where we talk about Kicker costs, I'm going to pay it, I promise. Right? That is a perfectly legal thing to do.
Yeah,
basically,
if you talk to your Magic cards just like that, that's also a perfectly normal thing to do.
Yes, exactly. Communication is important,
yeah.
Right? So the basic idea here is if it looks like you can do a thing as if you have to go a little bit out of order as you're declaring these choices, the game allows you to do that, right? Just look at the intent of the spell to understand how that process will work. All right? Okay, so we have made all of our choices for the spell. Now it is time to actually pay for that spell. Step 6 of casting a spell is we're going to determine what the total cost of the spell will be. To do this, we're going to start with the base cost. Generally, this is just going to be the mana cost of the spell, right? So for Cyclonic Rift, if you're just casting it normally, would be the base cost we're starting with is 1 and a blue. However, if you intend to cast this spell for its overload cost, which would be 6 and a blue, then we would start the base cost would be its alternate casting cost, the overload cost. After we've determined what the base cost will be, then we're going to add anything that would increase the cost. This could be an additional cost, such as Kicker. It could be a tax, something like Thorn of Amethyst here, that says your non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. We would add any effect that would cause the cost of that spell to increase. Then we would do the same thing, but for everything that would reduce the cost of the spell, right? So Goblin Electromancer says your instant and sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast. So we would, after we've added anything that increases the cost, we would add anything that reduces the cost. This just makes it so that you're not missing out on your cost reductions, and make sure that all of the effects are accounted for. Now, this next step, it says apply effects that set the total cost. This rule exists for exactly one card, and that card is Trinisphere. If you've never played against Trinisphere, that's probably okay. This card, it says each spell that would cost less than 3 mana to cast costs 3 mana to cast, right? So after we have figured out the base cost, added anything that would increase the cost, or add anything that would reduce the cost, if the total mana cost of that spell is less than 3, and there's a Trinisphere in play, Trinisphere says, make it 3. 3 is better. Now at this point, then the cost becomes locked in. So it doesn't matter what happens after we complete step 6, any changes to the game state that might affect the cost of the spell don't. And we'll look at an example of what I mean when I say that, when I say it's locked in a little bit. But just know, after we've determined the cost, nothing can change the cost. Step 7 is for activating mana abilities. So if this spell you're casting has a mana cost, you can activate mana abilities now, right? This would be where you tap your lands. This would be where you tap your mana dorks or your mana rocks, exile your simian spirit guides, whatever it may be, right? Now, a lot of times, this is another thing that we tend practically to do differently. A lot of times players will, tap their lands, add mana to their mana pool before they begin casting a spell, and that's totally fine. You are absolutely allowed to do that. There can be some advantages to waiting to do that until now, and perhaps we will show you an example of that in a minute. But just know that basically anytime the game requires a mana payment from you, immediately before you are required to make that mana payment, there's a window where you can activate mana abilities. All right, so after we have activated all the mana abilities that we want to activate, and all of that mana is in our mana pool, the last step is to pay the costs for the spell. Now you can pay the costs in any order that you want, understanding that you can't pay any partial costs, right? So if your spell is like Deadly Dispute, right? The cost for Deadly Dispute normally, assuming there's nothing that modifies it, would be one mana or 1 and a black as the mana cost, and then sacrifice a creature or artifact. I think Deadly Dispute, you can sacrifice a creature or artifact, right? So you could sacrifice a creature or artifact and then pay the mana cost, or you could pay the mana cost and then sacrifice a creature or artifact. You could not pay the black mana, then sacrifice a creature or artifact, and then pay the generic mana. It's a rule. I don't really know when that comes up, but it is a thing. The other choice that you have to keep in mind as you are paying the costs is any costs that involve random payment methods or moving cards from your library to another zone you're going to wait to pay those last. So an example, Acceptable Losses is this spell. It says, as an additional cost to cast it, you discard a card from your hand at random. So if you were casting Acceptable Losses, you would have to pay the mana cost first, and then you would discard the random card second. Or another example of the second thing, Ashiok Wicked Manipulator has this static ability. If you would pay life while your library has at least that many cards in it, exile that many cards from your library instead. So if you were casting a spell that normally would cause you to pay life while you had Ashiok Wicked Manipulator on there, the cost would become exile that many cards from your library. You would wait to pay this until the end. So after we've made all of our choices for our spell, we've determined what the total cost is and paid those costs, the last step is the spell officially becomes cast. And congratulations, you've cast a spell. If you have any effects or any triggered abilities that would trigger as when a spell becomes cast, they would trigger now. All right, so that was a lot of information. 9 steps is a lot of steps. So again, right, remember that this is something you will need very rarely, but knowing that it exists will be very helpful to you. If you want to know what the steps of casting a spell are at any point, and you don't feel like memorizing them, which is fair, that information is easily available online, right? You can check Section 601 of the Comprehensive Rules. It's on the Magic Wiki. Super easy to find.
I'll put the link in chat for everybody here.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. All right, so that was a lot of information. Let's take some time to let that sink in. We will get to our first boosty break.
Ooh.
Let me get my face out of the way here.
Amazing. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Steph. You can see my hands. You can't see my knee. But this... Oh, sorry.
Do you want to talk about our stream?
Yeah, I was going to.
Oh, okay. I just don't have your camera on yet.
Oh, beautiful. Hi everybody. So first thing before we get started here, we do have a Learn to Play stream coming up on Monday. So this is Memorial Day. This is another off cadence stream for us. This one's not until 12 p.m. So for you West Coasters, you get until 9 a.m. For us. But yeah, 12 p.m. Eastern. We're going to teach you how to play a brand new game called Cataclysm Arcade. Now the stream will also be sponsored by Gerudo. Yeah, we would love it if you showed up. This is a really, really, really wonderful trading card game. You know how much Brad and I love Limited, right? Well, this game is designed to be played out of one booster pack. And so we would love to teach you. It has very similar, it has kind of Commander vibes because, you have like a boss creature that's like in charge of what you've got going on. And your bosses are basically fighting each other. It's a whole cool thing. It's set in post-apocalyptic New York in like the 70s/80s. It is very cool. And if you know Brian David Marshall, I'm going to name drop here because he's one of the great minds that are behind this game. And so if that doesn't inspire confidence, I'm not sure what does. So anyway, Memorial Day, that's Monday for any of you who are unaware. And noon Eastern. But yeah, let's do a boosty break here. And this boosty break is brought to you again by our friends at Gerudo. Gerudo is the new digital home for the trading card game community. It is a fun and integrated platform where players can connect and engage with their favorite hobby. And it doesn't necessarily just mean Magic. They do all kinds of other fun stuff on there. Cataclysm Arcade is supported on there as well. They just added Riftbound. There's a bunch of other card games that you can play on there. They have a webcam gameplay. They have webcam gameplay portal. They have forums. They've got really great user profiles. Definitely check them out. But yeah, they're the reason why we get to open these boosties today. So let's crack into them. We've got 3 for this boosty break. These are our first Strixhaven collector booster packs that we have opened. We have not opened any of these yet. So let's hope for a silver scroll, right?
Yeah, very excited.
Okay. So I'm going to hold this up to the camera here and hope that it is in frame. Does this look
yeah, you're
okay?
in frame.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so we've got a Procrastinate, an Interjection. Did anybody else watch Schoolhouse Rock? Interjections show excitement or emotion, right? Got to Follow the Lumarets. We've got a Render Speechless. Practice Scrolls.
That's a Magic card.
Brad loves this one. This is the one you actually probably want this for your Commander deck, right? Like,
yeah,
you have this Proxied in there right now.
I have a non-foil when we open doing one of our field streams. So level up, baby. Let's go.
Look at us having some shiny cards that you like. Scathing Shadeback. Y'all, Strixhaven is such a good set. Brad and I love this set. It is so good. Strixhaven Sky Coach. The car. And then we have a not silver scroll. I don't know what this is. Can somebody in chat tell me what this is?
Is that like Spell Pierce, maybe?
Maybe Spell Pierce.
I can do a little bit of research while you
All right, we got Burst Lightning, Foil, Mystical Archives. Quinn says yes, it's Spell Pierce. Beautiful.
Nice.
Foil, Mystical Archives, Burst Lightning. And then we have our foil land, which we love. I do like these lands a lot.
Yeah, they're really cool.
They are very reminiscent to me of the Theros lands, like the Phoenix lands with like the big mana symbol. I like them because they're easily identifiable across the table. They're easily identifiable on webcam. It's easy to know what they are because the symbol is so big and bright and the colors are very vibrant. And so I like them a lot. All right, here we are with our rares, our fancy cards.
Oh, yes.
Oh, we've got a foil Erode. Brad, you want this for your... You have a non-foil Erode in your deck right now.
Yeah.
So this is
Quinn is going to get so many nice pieces for this. I'm very excited.
Yeah, Brad has a Quintorius deck, Field Historian deck, and he's just...
The OG.
Eating real good with this set. Okay, so we have a Rib Truss Roaster. This is from the Commander set. This is an extended art.
Ooh.
We've got Lorehold. This is a borderless non-foil Lorehold. I love these dragons so much. I have a 2-color Spellslinger deck that has a top end of two-color Elder Dragons, and turns out these are some pretty good 2-color Elder Dragons that really like Spellslinger decks. So perfect. We have a Mystical Archives Days, a foil one. Very nice, very nice. Then we have a Cauldron of Essence. This card is a house. This is an extended art foil. This one says whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And then you can pay 3 and tap it and sack a creature to return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield as a sorcery. Directly from the graveyard to the battlefield for 3 mana. Whoa. And it's repeatable. Say less. And then we have a token here. It's the Inkling and the cat. Beautiful.
Nice.
All right. We will combine these here. And we have another boosty. This is boosty number 2.
Number 2, Steve?
We're going to pretend like you didn't say that. All right, so we have Heated Argument. Am I in frame here?
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Then we have Bogwater Lumerette. Love this card. This is a house common in limited. Now, limited, I feel like Witherbloom is probably the worst color combination in limited. Or at least that's what I've experienced. Like
Yeah.
I find that, but I do think if you get a bunch of these guys in your pool, that swings it in your favor.
Yeah, I feel like
pretty
it's
easily.
one that like you need. It needs one of the most like some of the most build around cards, but if you get them,
If you
it's really
have them,
good.
yeah.
It just has a high build cost.
Yeah, the build around aspect is what I think makes it the weakest. But if you have it, then yeah, you're in great shape. Here's a spirit mascot for you, Brad.
Very fun.
The bear.
Rampant
I think
bear.
we just gave a friend of ours a non-foil bear. Hey Tim, do you want the foil bear now? We have a foil one for you. Okay. Lorehold
Love
Charm.
a Lorehold Charm.
Soaring Stone Glider. End of the Hunt. Duty Beyond Death.
That's a good one.
Mystical Archives non-foil. Mystical Archives foil, Helping Hand. Very nice. And then our land is a
Yeah.
Plains, and this has Abigail on it. We love that. All right, now we're getting to our rares and fancy cards. All right, we have Tragedy Feaster. This is 7/6 with Trample for
Nice.
4 mana. That makes you sacrifice something every turn if you want to keep it out. Iganjo Dinosaurian. This is a commander card. This is a extended art non-foil. Has Replenish stapled to it.
A totally fair and normal magic card.
Yes, we love that. Moment of Reckoning, the Silver Quill Bomb. This is an extended art non-foil. And then this is a
Ooh.
non-silver scroll. I don't know what
It's got to
this
be Ad
is.
Nauseum.
Is this Ad Naus?
I think so.
Okay.
It seems like it's got Ad Nauseum vibes and an Ad Nauseum mana cost.
Are you looking at the cards right now? So you know what they are?
I will confirm.
It's Ad Naus. Very nice. Ooh, and then we have a extended art foil, Emeritus of Abundance, as our last card in the
Ooh.
pack here. Very nice. And our we have a art token of Burug Barrage. Very nice. Okay. Ready for our third pack. We're ready for that silver scroll. I'm ready
Here
to
we
receive
go.
the silver scroll whenever the silver scroll is ready to make itself known to me. Okay. All right, we've got am I in frame?
Yes.
All right, we've got Grapple with Death. We've got Goblin Glassrite. Burg Barrage. Hey, we just
We
found
did
the
it.
art card for that.
Frog fight.
Frog Fight. Forum of Amity. Excuse me. Garrison Excavator.
Nice.
Is this another one that you have
Yeah.
in your deck? But you need to foil one.
Yep.
There you go. Look at that. We're opening all kinds of cards for you today, Brad. Foolish Fate. Stirring Honormancer. All right. We have.
Is that white?
Oh yeah. Oh, no, this is blue. I'm
It's
sorry.
blue.
Stock up. This is stock up.
Ah.
I think I see a silver scroll.
Whoa.
What is this? Can somebody help me?
Is that the return of Spell Pierce?
I think this might be Spell Pierce. Spell Pierce. Okay, very nice. So Silver Scroll Spell Pierce. These look so good in person. Oh my gosh, these look so good in person.
Whew.
Hi, Red Eyes Vikes. Thank you for the first time chat. It is great to see you. We're opening a booster box here, and then we're going to get back to learning about casting spells. All right.
Look at that swamp.
Swamp, and then we have Dreamroot Cascade.
Nice.
We've got Noctiman Lore Spinner. This has Wheel of Fortune stapled to it.
Another perfectly normal and fair
Another
magic
perfectly
card.
normal and fair magic card. We love it. Arc of Hunger, Brad. You like this
Ooh,
card.
I do like this
You like this
card.
card a lot. All right, we have. I really should have looked at these before the stream. I really should have looked at these before the stream. This is
I
a
mean,
lot.
Quinn's on it. I believe in Quinn. That is Return to the Ranks.
Rally the Ancestors. Return to the Ranks.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Vicious Rivalry. This is not a heated rivalry, but this is a vicious one. And then we have an Inkling token. We love it. Okay, so we did have a Silver Scroll Spell Pierce here. I feel really good about that.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, that's the end of this Boosty Break. Thank you, Garudo, for making that happen. We appreciate you.
All right. Let's hide this. There's Brad. Hi, friends. I'm back. Okay. So we did a lot. I just threw a lot of information at you, and we gave you some time to sort of ruminate over it. But I want to go through an example to show you the technically correct order for casting a spell. So imagine with me, if you will, your opponent has a handful of creatures, a Savannah Lions and a Runeclaw Bear, and obviously you can't let that stand. So you're going to cast a Rolling. You want to cast a Rolling Thunder about it. Again, that's that sorcery. X red. It deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. So let's walk through the steps of casting this spell. Step 1 is proposing the spell. We're going to move it from wherever it is. We'll say it's in our hand right now, to putting it on the stack. Rolling Thunder's on the stack. Step 2, we're going to make choices for this spell. Now, the only choice that we have to make for Rolling Thunder is we have to decide what the value of X is going to be. Our opponent's creatures, the ones we want to fry up, have a total toughness of 3, so we need X to be at least 3. So we're going to say X equals 3. Next, we'll declare our targets. So there are 2 creatures we want to target, so we're going to have 2 targets, and we will declare Runeclaw Bear and Savannah Lions as those targets. Then, in step 4, we will divide the effects of our spell. We want to make sure Savannah Lions and Runeclaw Bear both bite the dust, so we will assign 1 damage to Savannah Lions and 2 damage to Runeclaw Bear. Next, we'll do our legality check. So we're going to think about all the choices we made so far. 3 is a perfectly normal and legal value for X to be. Both of the creatures that we targeted are legal targets, and there are no effects saying we have to target something else. And then we've divided our cost or our damage in a perfectly legal way, because each of our targets has received at least 1 damage. This is a legal spell cast. Congratulations. All right.
We've done it.
Next, we got to get into paying for the spell. So we have to determine the spell's total cost. Now, we said X equals 3, so the generic mana component of this spell is going to be 3 plus the 2 red. This 3 red is our total cost. This will lock this total cost in. This is what we have to pay. Next, we have a space to activate our mana abilities. We have these 5 lovely mountains here that we will tap to add 5 red mana to our mana pool. Then we have to actually pay the cost, and the only cost to pay here is the mana cost, so we will feed our 5 red mana to Rolling Thunder, and congratulations, the spell has been cast. As soon as this Rolling Thunder resolves, those pesky creatures are going to be out of here. We love it. All right, now there are some additional rules for casting spells that I want to make sure we go over. The first of which is you can only begin to cast a spell if a rule or effect allows you to cast that spell and no rule or effect prohibits you from casting that spell. So, for example, right, a normal rule of the game is that you can cast spells from your hand. So any spell you have in your hand, you can just cast. Another example might be something like flashback, right? Flashback is a mechanic that allows you to cast the card that has it from your graveyard. So if you had a Chatter of the Squirrel in your graveyard, the rules of flashback allow you to cast it from your graveyard. So you're allowed to. Conversely, something like Drannith Magistrate has an effect that could prohibit you from casting a spell, right? Drannith Magistrate says your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. So if I had a Drannith Magistrate and you had a Chatter of the Squirrel in your graveyard, there is a rule, flashback, that allows you to cast Chatter of the Squirrel from your graveyard, but there's also a rule, Drannith Magistrate, that says you are not allowed to cast Chatter of the Squirrel from your graveyard. Therefore, you are not allowed to cast Chatter of the Squirrel from your graveyard. This is another example of can't beats can. Now, when we're determining if we can begin to cast a spell, if there is a rule or effect that would allow or prohibit us to cast a spell, we are allowed to look ahead and consider choices we will make for that spell when we're determining if we are allowed to begin casting it. As an example of what we mean, right? Void Winnower is a card, a creature, that one of its effects is your opponents can't cast spells with even mana value. Now, if you want to cast Rolling Thunder, while it's in your hand, has mana value 2 because we consider X to be 0. However, you are allowed to look ahead to choices you will make for the casting of Rolling Thunder to determine if you can cast it, right? So if you could declare a value for X that would make Rolling Thunder's mana value odd while it's on the stack, you are allowed to begin casting the spell. This is another one of those examples where you can just say, no, game, I promise it's okay. Rolling Thunder's gonna have an odd mana value. I can cast it even though Void Winnower says I might not be able to. As long as you choose an odd value for X, you're free to continue casting the spell. Another example, Melek Izzet Paragon has this ability that says you can cast instant and sorcery spells from the top of your library. If you had a Brazen Borrower on top of your library, Brazen Borrower has this adventure, Petty Theft, that is an instant, right? You would be allowed to say, hey game, look, I know Brazen Borrower is a creature card while it's on top of my library, but once I put it on the stack, it's going to be an instant. I promise this is okay. And as long as you cast this as an instant, right, then the game won't stop you, right? You're allowed to look ahead to the choice of this is actually an instant when you're deciding whether or not you can begin to cast this spell. Quick drink.
Stay hydrated.
All right. Now, another rule is you cannot pay 2 alternative casting costs for the same spell. As an example, our friend Lier here has this effect. Each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback. The flashback cost is equal to that card's mana cost. Flashback is an alternate casting cost. So is overload, right? You are changing what the total cost or the base casting cost for the spell. So if you had Lier on the battlefield and Cyclonic Rift in your graveyard, you could not cast Cyclonic Rift for both its flashback cost and its overload cost, right? Which means if you want to cast Cyclonic Rift from your graveyard, your only option is to cast it for its flashback cost. You cannot overload Cyclonic Rift via flashback. So as an conversely, right, you can pay any number of additional costs like kicker or whatever. So let's look at some examples of that. I want to talk about the difference between alternate cost and an additional cost, right? So look at Evoke, for example, right? Some examples of alternate costs are things like flashback, overload, madness, evoke, bestow. When you're looking at a card that has one of these, its rules or reminder text will say something like, cast this spell for its whatever cost, right? So you can see with Foundation Breaker, you may cast the spell for its evoke cost. Now, if you are really stuck, right, the easiest surefire way to know if an if a cost is an alternate cost or an additional cost is just to look it up. You can find it in the comprehensive rules. In the, like, you could just do a Google search, is evoke an alternate cost or an additional cost, and find like a wiki or something that will tell you that information. Don't use the AI generated summary because it's wrong so many times. Anyway,
the quickest way to tilt Brad in a Commander game is for you to look up the AI rules summary for something that he's telling you, like a rule that he's telling you about, and to try to prove him wrong with the AI summary. That is the quickest way to tilt him in a Commander game.
I don't like it. So, but yeah, so evoke or alternate costs will say you're basically replacing the mana cost with a new one. Conversely, additional costs such as kicker or buyback or casualty or offspring or entwine or jumpstart, there's a whole long list of them. These effects will say you may pay an additional cost or as an additional cost or in addition to paying. So these are additional costs. These are things that extra costs that you are tacking on to the casting cost of the spell. So these, you can pay as many additional costs as you want, right? And additionally, right, if you had, say, Inscription of Abundance from before, right? A sorcery in your graveyard, you had Lier on the battlefield. Lier is giving your Inscription of Abundance flashback. You could cast it from your graveyard for its flashback cost and also pay its kicker cost, because one is an alternate cost and the other is an additional cost. All right. Another quick aside before we continue, I want to talk about Convoke, Improvise, and Delve. Each of these abilities represent alternate ways to pay the mana component of a spell's cost. For example, so Convoke says you can use your creatures to help you pay the mana cost for the spell. Each creature you tap while you cast it pays for either one generic mana or one mana of one of that creature's colors. Similarly, Improvise says each artifact you tap as you cast this spell pays for one generic mana of the spell's cost. And then lastly, for Delve, is the same thing, but each card you exile from your graveyard pays for one mana of that cost, right? Now, so if you want these, again, these are additional ways to pay the mana cost. This is not a cost reduction. This is not these aren't like mana abilities that you're activating. So if you want to cast a spell with the aid of one of these mechanics, you'll do so during the pay the costs step of the spell, right? After you have activated your mana abilities, when you're paying all of the costs. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. I want to get back to this.
The Goblin Electromancer question?
Yes, we have learned.
Okay.
We've learned a lot about how we cast spells. And so we had some time to think things through. So I want to come back to this question, right? So as a reminder of what we're doing, we have an Ashnod's Altar, which lets you sacrifice a creature for 2 generic mana. You have a Goblin Electromancer, which reduces the cost of your instants and sorceries by 1 generic mana. You have only a single untapped island, and you want to cast Unexpected Assistance. This is an instant with Convoke. So, armed with the knowledge we just accrued, what do you all think? Can we cast Unexpected Assistance here? So Steph's going to start a poll for us. I want you to give this a good think, ruminate over the things that we've learned, and I want to see what your thoughts are. Put your answers in the chat or in the poll. There's no penalties or judgments for wrong answers. I just want to get an idea for where we are, and then after we see what everyone thinks, we'll walk through the example and talk about how this works, and hopefully that will help clear up any confusion. All right, so we have the poll in there. Looks like there's a little bit of dissension, which we love. This means that there's a teachable moment, and it's a good question that I asked. So please feel free to disagree. It makes me feel better about my rules questions.
Get those guesses in there, friends.
All right, time's almost up. Okay, so it looks like we got 5-2 in favor of yes. So let's talk about this. I will preface this by saying the correct answer here is no. We do not have enough resources to cast Unexpected Assistance. Let's talk about why. So we're going to step through the casting of this spell so we can see how all of this works. Step 1, we're going to propose the spell, put it on the stack. Very cool. Now, steps 2 through 4, we can essentially skip, right? There are no choices to be made for Unexpected Assistance. It's just a draw spell. There's no targets. There's no effects to divide. Nothing. This also means that the legality check, super simple, right? All of the 0 choices that we made for this spell are perfectly fine. So now we get to the part where we are going to determine the cost for the spell, right? Step 1, we determine the total cost. Now we're going to start with a base cost. This is Unexpected Assistance normal mana cost of 3 blue. Then we're going to apply our cost reductions, our cost increases, and all that. We have Goblin Electromancer, which will reduce the generic mana cost of the spell by 1 down to 2. At this point, we have locked in the cost of this spell, right? 2 blue, the cost will not change. So now we get to step 7, where we can activate mana abilities, and this is where we start to get into trouble, right? We've already locked in the mana cost of the spell. We know we're paying 2 blue, so if we sacrifice Goblin Electromancer to Ashnod's Altar, we won't suddenly have to pay 3 blue, right? We've already locked in the cost. However, our plan to cast this spell involved tapping Goblin Electromancer to Convoke to pay for 1 of the blue mana and sacrificing it to Ashnod's Altar. However, as we just talked about, we activate mana abilities now, which is what Ashnod's Altar is, but we don't use Convoke. We don't pay for stuff with Convoke until the next step. So we can't both sacrifice Electromancer to Ashnod's Altar and tap it to Convoke to pay those costs. We would either need another source of blue mana, such as another untapped island, or we would need another creature to sacrifice to Ashnod's Altar. So unfortunately, we cannot cast this spell. And the game would, when we get to this point and the game sees that we don't have enough resources to pay for it, would just back up to immediately before we proposed Unexpected Assistance. And we could continue with the game from there.
And if you got it wrong, that is okay.
Yes.
That is why we're doing this. The important part is you'll learn why it was wrong. And
that's what we love.
You know for next time.
All right. So we just talked about a lot. We're getting ready to transition to the next phase of our thing, but let's do another boosty break real quick.
We love boosty breaks. I've got so many boosties in front of me.
I'm going to hide me and show Steph. Whoa, look at that. What's all that about?
These are the wrong boosties. Oh, okay. So yeah, this is just another plug. So these booster packs that we have for Cataclysm Arcade, for our Monday stream, I think we're among the first people to open these. Brian David Marshall overnighted them to us literally yesterday. And so I think we're gonna be among the first people that you're gonna watch crack real booster packs of Cataclysm Arcade. Now we have some like demo product as well from like in the initial iterations of it that's in like team bags and stuff, but these are the first real booster packs of this product, and so we get to crack these on Monday and teach you how to play games with them. But see, look, it says plays out of 1 pack. It's so descriptive. But yeah, we'll play this on Monday. But let me
play with your pack's energy.
Clean this up and then get to what we came here for, which is the Strixhaven collector boosters, which were given to us by Gerudo. Gerudo, we're very thankful for you. Thank you for making this happen. We appreciate you. All right, let's open some boosties. I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's see if we can open some more things for specifically your Quintorius deck and nothing else.
I would love it.
In this house,
we need a restoration seminar.
Yeah.
We need some of the commander cards.
Am I in frame here?
You are in frame.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so we have a Run Behind. We've got Stuck in the Past. We've got Tackle Artist. This is my favorite comment of the set. I really love big dinguses that turn sideways, and this is a big dingus that turns sideways real good, and I like him a lot. Dig Site Inventory. I think this is my favorite instant or sorcerer in the set.
Yeah, that's
it
a
is
good
just incredibly efficient, and it is very good in 2 different archetypes. I think it's great. Impractical Joke.
Strangle with Upside.
Earth Thathian boosties. Yes, Earth Thathian. Also, hi, it's good to see you. Thanks for the first time chat. Impractical Joke. We have Lewin.
That card's insane.
That card is insane, and it's a great card. Great card. Eternal Student. Zombie Warlock. What a creature type line. All right, let's see here. We've got Helping Hand.
Very
Mystical
cool.
Archive. And then we've got Requisition Raid. This is a Mystical Archive.
Nice.
And then we have a Quintorius Mountain.
Yeah, buddy, let's go.
There you go. Brad wants so many of these for his deck.
Yes. I
All
think
right.
earlier Quinn said he had 2 of them.
Ooh,
So I think between that one and the 2 that Quinn has, if we can trade for him or whatever, I'm set.
Very
There's
nice.
not a lot of mountains in that deck.
All right. So, the Dawning Archaic. This thing is heckin' big stompy that goes. It can go in any archetype. But it's 10 mana. So, but it costs 1 less to cast for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. So it probably goes best in like a Prismari build or maybe a Quandrix build as well, because Quandrix likes to cast instants like X cost instants and sorceries as well.
Yeah.
But and also can ramp. So.
And
But
we
yeah,
know
Dawning Archaic. What a great card.
that cost reduction applies in step 6 of casting your spells.
There we go. There we go. Exactly.
Tying it back
exactly.
together.
All right, we have Brass Infinite Scope. This is from the Commander decks. This is an extended art non-foil. It's a mana dork. Add 2. When you next cast a spell with X and its mana cost this turn, you draw a card and gain half X life rounded down. What a great little utility, dude. Magma Blood Archaic. Okay, great. We love this. We love the Archaics in Limited because there's a secret 5-color soup archetype that you can build into if you get the cards for it. And these Archaics are really, really, really excellent.
Yeah, and I remember from Converge's first iteration in, was it Battle for Zendikar? I was like very underwhelmed. So I came into this set expecting to be underwhelmed by Converge, but it's very good this time
Yeah.
around.
Mr. B, you missed the answer to the Goblin Electromancer question. That was the big thing. And also we finished learning how to cast spells. We're gonna learn a little bit more about some other things involving putting things on the stack here in a little bit. But now we're opening some boosties. We found a Subterranean Tremors
Lizard,
with
Earthquake.
Fun Lizard Friend on it. We love Fun Lizard Friends on Magic cards. And then Silver Quill, the Disputant. Oh, this is one that I really wanted. This card, yeah, Casualty is amazing, and it's a 4/4 for 4, a Flying Vigilance, which I think is just a great rate for a dragon. And then each instant and sorcery spell you cast has a Casualty 1. We love it. And then we've got a token here, Elementals. Okay, that's the first card that we've opened that I am very excited about for me. I am laying claim to that, by
Please
the way.
do.
You do not get to have that. That is mine. All right. I went through and like made a little incision on these booster packs that I was very careful about it. But I just opening these on camera otherwise is just a chore. So I had to cheat a little bit. All right. Muse's Encouragement. Am I in frame?
You're in frame, yes.
Beautiful. Muse's Encouragement. Rapier Wit. A lot of people really like this card for Limited. I think it's fine. Elemental Mascot. Rearing Embermare. I just keep
Horse.
wanting to put these horses. There are 2 horses in this set. I keep wanting to put them in a deck. I don't like them in anything, and I feel like they're just curve fillers.
Yeah.
But this one has Reach and Haste 4/5. It's nice against some archetypes. Dual Tactics. Leech Collector. This card is sneaky good.
Mm-hmm.
Steph has initiated the dibs. She has initiated the dibs. That Magna Blood is great in every
We have to
draftable.
respect the dibs.
Yes. Tam is insane. Tam is insane and Limited. All right, what do we have here?
I feel like
Anybody
that's
want to help us out?
probably Duty Beyond Death, but I will double
Duty
check.
Beyond Death.
It's got big Duty Beyond Death vibes.
Does it really?
It is Duty Beyond Death.
Very nice. Okay. Locust Spray. Target creature gets minus. Yeah, very nice. Okay, that's a foil Mystical Archive. And then we have a Plains. Hey, Brad.
Yeah, baby, let's
Your
go.
Glorious deck is eating good. All right, Informed Inkwright. Very nice. And then Turbulent Springs.
Nice.
This is the Cinnamon Roll Lands. What are we calling these? Do we have a name for them?
I like Cinnamon Roll.
But like,
That's
there's
fun.
Is there a real name for them? A Cinnamon Roll Lands.
I think
is like.
I think all of them begin with the word turbulence, so that's probably what they're gonna end up being.
Oh,
But
that's kind of annoying. I like Cinnamon Roll Lands. Cinnamon Springs. Yes. Exhibition Tide Collar, very nice. This is the mill one. It's extended art non-foil. Veil of Summer.
Ooh.
This is Mystical Archives non-foil. We love Veil of Summer. I love Veil of Summer.
So you play Veil of Summer in a deck?
I do. I sure do. I got you with it the other day. Choreographed Sparks. This is an extended art foil. Very nice. And then our token, we've got the Elemental and the Fractal here. We love. Okay, last booster pack of this boosty break. That will put us at 6 booster packs opened. Here we go. You like Cinnamon Roll lands? That's how Tango lands came to be. Very nice, yes.
Yep, you're in
all
frame.
Right. All right, am I? Okay, wonderful. Last gasp. Ascendant Dust Speaker. Shopkeeper's Bane. All right, and then Spectacle Summit. Very nice. Prismari Charm. Molten Note. Orisa Tide Choreographer. I almost said choreographer. Choreographer is how you say that word. Put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. All right, and then we have, this is a non-foil.
Oh, that's got to be Disdainful Stroke.
Disdainful Stroke, yeah.
There's a paintbrush and everything.
Yeah, there you go. And there's a lot of disdain in that
yes,
picture.
Disdainful Stroke.
Yeah, there you go. We have Stargaze. Ooh, I love this printing of Stargaze. That's
so nice.
Stargaze is a sneaky good card, y'all. If you're not playing it, please do.
I have conflicted feelings because I also like the close-up on the bat's face with all the stars in its pupils.
Oh.
But Shiny is also very nice.
Yeah.
Shiny and Fun Border is nice.
Yeah. All right. And then we have the Foil Swamp, which we love. Comforting Counsel. I keep wanting to play this in Limited and keep not doing it. I keep, whenever I feel like, I don't know.
I think
that's
good. That's good for the decks where you have so many Bogwater Limereds.
Yeah. 8 lands is your choice. Turbulent is too much. There you go. Fury Gale Flocking. This is from the Commander deck. Cost 1 less to cast for each instant or sorcery in your graveyard. For each opponent, make 2 3/3 blue and red elemental creature tokens with flying that attack that opponent this turn. If able, they gain haste until end of turn. Heck yeah. Okay. Ambitious Augmenter. This is an extended art non-foil. This is the Increment 1-drop.
Pretty good.
Crop Rot.
Wow,
We got a foil Crop Rot. Foil Mystical Archives Crop Rot. We love a Crop Rot. And then our last rare here is Applied Geometry. This is a extended art foil. Very nice. Very, very, very nice. And we have an art card. It's got a weird archaic on it. This is the Oracle's Restoration art.
All right.
Okay. Thanks again, Garuda. We appreciate you. Thanks for the boosties. We'll be back with 2 more. 2 more boosty breaks.
I'm back. Wow. Okay. So we've talked a lot about casting spells. Let's talk about the other kind of thing that can be put on the stack, abilities. First kind of ability we're going to talk about is activated abilities. This is a kind of ability that a player has to make a conscious decision to activate. They follow this template. So the cost is everything listed before the colon. That's its activation cost. Usually it's just a mana payment, but it could include almost anything. The tap symbol is incredibly common. It might involve sacrificing or discarding things. But just every symbol and word that occurs before the colon is part of that activation cost.
I can tell I'm like crabby today because you were like, yeah, activated abilities are things that players have to activate, and I was about to get on your case. Anyway.
Yeah. All right. Then everything written after the colon is its effect. These are the instructions that you would follow when that ability resolves. Some activated abilities have additional activation instructions that will be that will follow the effect. So if you see here, this is the rules text for Rootwalla. Its activation cost is 1 and a green, and then the effect is Rootwalla gets +2/+2 until end of turn. It has an additional set of activation instructions. Activate this ability only once each turn. Now, activating an ability follows a similar process to the procedure of casting a spell, right? You put the ability on the stack, you make the relevant choices for the stack, or for the ability, you confirm or that you determine the total cost of the ability, and you pay the total cost, and then the ability is activated. Now, by default, right, you can activate an ability at any time that you have priority, right? So like we call this instant speed, though sometimes an activated ability's activation instructions may limit this. A good example of this is equip, right? Equip has this activation instruction, equip only as a sorcery. Also, by default, you can activate an ability only while the permanent that has the activated ability is on the battlefield, though again, the specifics of that ability might change where you can activate that ability from. I have some examples here. Ghor-Clan Rampager has this Blood Rush ability. You can pay some mana and discard it to give an attacking creature +4/+4 and trample. The only place from which you could discard Ghor-Clan Rampager is from your hand. Therefore, this ability can be activated while Ghor-Clan Rampager is in your hand. Similarly, Reassembling Skeleton has this activated ability that when it resolves, returns it from your graveyard to the battlefield. So because this effect only functions only from the graveyard, you are allowed to activate it while Reassembling Skeleton is in your graveyard, right? A lot of times, so like these exceptions just kind of make sense, right? If you can't physically perform the actions of the ability while the card is on the battlefield, then you probably are activating this ability from a different zone. And then lastly, by default, only a permanence controller, or in the case of a card in another zone, if it doesn't have a controller, the card's owner, can activate this ability, though again, the activation instructions may provide you with an exception to this rule. Take Feral Hydra as an example. It has this activated ability. You can pay 3 mana to put a +1/+1 counter on it, but then it says any player may activate this ability, right? So again, by default, you can activate abilities at instant speed while the thing that has it is on the battlefield, and only you can activate the activated abilities of your own permanents. But there, as with all things in Magic, there are exceptions. Okay. Now, the other kind of ability that can get put on the stack is a triggered ability. Now, a triggered ability is a kind of ability that just kind of happens automatically when certain things happen during the game. They have the following template. They will begin with one of the words when, whenever, or at, followed by the trigger condition, and then after a comma will be the effect that you're going to follow. So for example, with Eternal Witness here, you see the word when, and then its trigger condition, Eternal Witness enters the battlefield, comma, the effect, you may return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So the phrase following following the when, whenever, or at, the trigger condition can be any number of things: when this creature enters, whenever you cast a spell, at the beginning of your upkeep, but you're looking for, to know if something is a triggered ability, you're looking for one of those words: when, whenever, or at. Now, as you're putting a triggered ability on the stack, you will make all of the choices for that ability much in the same way you would when you're casting a spell or activating an activated ability, though triggered abilities don't have any kind of cost you have to pay in order to put them on the stack, though they might have a cost you have to pay in order to get them to resolve. But the triggered abilities, they just kind of go on the stack immediately. And that's when you'll make choices like, if it's a modal trigger, choosing what mode you want; if it has targets, choosing that target, so on and so forth. Now, some triggered abilities will have additional instructions that will limit if, when, or how they trigger. These will appear at the end of the ability, much in the same way the activation instructions of an activated ability appear. Take, for example, Morbid Opportunist. The ability has, the last sentence of this ability is, this ability triggers only once each turn, right? So that would mean that bit of effect informs how often this ability can trigger. Now, there are a lot of the specifics associated with triggered abilities, so we're going to get a little into the weeds about those. First, the infamous intervening if clause. Some triggered abilities have an intervening if clause. These will appear after the trigger condition and before the effect, in between a pair of commas. So you can see this is the rules text for Ophiomancer. It says, there's our at, the trigger condition, the beginning of your upkeep, comma, if you control no snakes, comma, that's our intervening if clause, create a 1/1 black snake creature token with Death Touch. With triggered abilities that have this intervening if clause, the ability won't even trigger if you don't meet the requirements of the intervening if clause when that ability is supposed to trigger. So in the case of Ophiomancer, as you enter the upkeep step, if you control one or more snakes, Ophiomancer's ability won't even trigger. It just won't go on the stack. You have to have 0 snakes before you get to the upkeep if you want to make this 1/1 black snake with Death Touch. Okay? Now, some triggered abilities do have an if clause, but it's not an intervening if clause, right? If it doesn't appear in between the trigger condition and the effect between a pair of commas, but instead appears at the end of the ability, such as with Halia Guided by Light. Halia's got this triggered ability at the beginning of your end step, comma, draw a card if you gained 3 or more life this turn. This is not an intervening if clause, right? Halia's ability will always trigger when you get to the beginning of the end step. However, you just won't draw a card if you haven't gained 3 or more life by the time that triggered ability resolves, right? So do you see the difference there? The intervening if clause will appear before the effect, right there, right? Those are the abilities that won't even trigger if you don't meet their requirements. Whereas if the if statement comes at the end, then the ability will still trigger and will just check as it resolves if you meet the conditions, right? Next, we're going to talk about delayed triggered abilities. So some triggered abilities are delayed triggered abilities. These are triggered abilities that are created by the resolution of another spell or ability, and then they just kind of wait to get put on the stack until their condition is met. Take, for example, this is the rules text of one of the best cards in the game, Mistmeadow Witch.
I love this card.
Mistmeadow Witch has an activated ability that exiles target creature, and then it says return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Now, the order of this is a little bit different from what we've seen from other triggered abilities, but the word at is still there, right? So you can see by how I've highlighted it, we have at the beginning of the next end step, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So what happens here is you activate Mistmeadow Witch's ability, right? And that ability goes on the stack. When that ability resolves, 2 things happen. The first is you exile target creature. The second is you create this delayed triggered ability that will hang around in space in the ether until it's supposed to trigger at the beginning of your next end step. And when that triggered ability resolves, the creature will return. Now, generally, most delayed triggered abilities will trigger only once the next time that their trigger condition is met. Though, as you will notice is the pattern, there are some exceptions. So take, for example, Benefactor's Draft. This is an instant. It says untap all creatures until end of turn, comma, whenever a creature an opponent controls blocks, comma, draw a card, right? So this Benefactor's Draft does create a delayed triggered ability. You see the word whenever in there. But this triggered ability will persist until the end of the turn and will trigger every time a creature an opponent controls blocks. Make sense? Now, so again, with these delayed triggered abilities, these are separate triggered abilities that are being put on the stack. And as such, you could interact with them, right? If I had a delayed triggered ability that was going to target a permanent you controlled, you could respond to that delayed trigger by giving it hexproof. Or if you had something like Stifle that could counter a triggered ability, you could counter the delayed triggered ability if you wanted. So, some triggered abilities are what we call reflexive triggered abilities. And these look a lot like delayed triggered abilities, but they are different. So these are triggered abilities that, again, are created by the resolution of another spell or ability, and whether or not they trigger will generally depend on choices you made during the resolution of the effect that created it. This, for example, is the rules text of Ruthless Lawbringer. It says when it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, destroy target non-land permanent. So there's that word when again. So when Ruthless Lawbringer resolves and enters the battlefield, there is a triggered ability that is put on the stack. When that triggered ability resolves, two things happen. First, you have the option to sacrifice another creature. And then if you do, this reflexive triggered ability triggers and will get put on the stack. Remember how we talked about you declare the targets for your triggered abilities when they're put on the stack? Because this, when you do destroy target non-land permanent, is a separate triggered ability, a reflexive triggered ability, right? You will declare the target for this reflexive triggered ability only after you have sacrificed another creature, right? So Ruthless Lawbringer enters, trigger on the stack. When that triggered ability resolves, if you sacrifice another creature, another triggered ability is put on the stack, and you will declare the target for the reflexive triggered at that time. Now, there are some effects that look like reflexive triggered abilities, right? Reflexive triggered abilities are relatively new in the grand scheme of Magic's rules. Some older cards, such as Kuldotha Flamefiend, are worded a little bit differently. So when Kuldotha Flamefiend enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, Kuldotha Flamefiend deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. This is not a reflexive triggered ability. It doesn't have the words when, whenever, or at.
It has if.
It has if.
Which is not an indicator of a triggered ability.
So when Kuldotha Flamefiend enters and this triggered ability is put on the stack, you will choose the targets for this triggered ability, and you will choose how your damage will be divided among those targets when this triggered ability is put on the stack. However, when this ability resolves, you will then have the choice to sacrifice an artifact or not, and if you don't sacrifice the artifact, no damage is dealt. You see how those two things are different, and how the linchpin there is when you do versus if you do? Okay. And again, if you have any questions at all, use that chat redemption, the Ask Brad a Question chat redemption. Put it in the queue so that I can make sure that I find it and we can answer your questions and clear up your confusions. Okay. Now, I briefly mentioned mana abilities during the steps of casting a spell, so I want to make clear what qualifies as a mana ability because they have some special rules associated with them. So, an activated ability is a mana ability if it could add mana to your mana pool when it resolves, it doesn't target anything, and it isn't a loyalty ability like those you would find on Planeswalkers. Additionally, a triggered ability is a mana ability if it could add mana to your mana pool when it resolves, it does not target anything, and its trigger condition is the activation of a mana ability or mana being added to a player's mana pool. Now, so if your abilities meet all of these criteria, they are mana abilities, right? So you can see with Mirari's Wake here, it says whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land produced. So these activated and triggered abilities, these are the kinds of abilities that you can activate during the process of casting a spell or triggering an ability, or casting a spell or activating an ability, or anytime the game asks you for a mana payment. These are the kinds of abilities that you can use immediately before you have to pay that cost in order to generate the mana to pay it. And the mana abilities don't use the stack. They resolve as soon as they are activated or triggered, and they can't meaningfully be interacted with, right? So that was a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do another knowledge check to see where we're all at. So we have talked a lot about Quintorius.
Mm-hmm.
He is my boy, my favoritist boy. We love him. So let's tell me what you think about this scenario. You control Quintorius, Field Historian, who has this triggered ability. Whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. You also have in your graveyard Sentinel's Eyes. This is an aura, and it has Escape, which is kind of like Flashback. Escape is an alternate ability or an alternate casting cost that you can pay while the card that has it is in your graveyard, and it lets you cast it from your graveyard. In this case, and the escape cost will always include exiling some number of other cards from your graveyard. So in this case, with Sentinel's Eyes, you can cast it for its escape cost by paying a white mana and exiling 2 other cards from your graveyard. So if you were to cast Sentinel's Eyes from your graveyard for its escape cost, how many times will Quintorius trigger?
How many spirits will you get?
How many spirits will you make? Now, by the way I see it, it'll either be 1 spirit or 2 spirits. So we're going to get a poll going to see what y'all think.
I'll start it now.
Yep. So do some thinking about what we know so far about activating, casting spells and triggering abilities, and get your thoughts on this in the chat. Again, I would love to just see where everyone's at. There's no penalty for wrong answers. No one's going to judge you or make fun of you. We appreciate your participation. And take a swig while we vote.
We're frozen, I think.
We're frozen. That's not good.
Okay. Okay, it looks fine. Apparently it's just frozen on my stream
okay.
preview.
Well, that's good. I'm glad we're not actually frozen. Okay. All right, the votes are in, and it's an even split between yes and no. Very, very exciting. So, the correct answer here is 2 spirits. So let's talk about why. So we're going to walk through the steps of casting the spell, and we're going to track every time that Quintorius is supposed to trigger. All right. So step 1 in our casting of spells is to propose the spell and move it to the stack. So we will do that. Oh, and hey, check that out. That's 1 or more cards leaving our graveyard. That triggers Quintorius. Very, very cool. Okay, let's keep going. So we have to make some choices for our spell. The only choice we really have to make is declaring targets. So we will declare Quintorius, and we will give him the special eyes. Then there are no effects to divide, so we can skip that and go straight to the legality check. The only thing we have to check is whether or not Quintorius is a legal spell or is a legal target for Sentinel's Eyes, which he is. We love this. Quintorius is in fact a creature. Then, I guess now he's a creature. Before he was a creature, now he's a planeswalker. Anyway, so the spell is legal to cast. Good for us, we did it. Now we get to the part of the show where we have to determine the total cost of our spell, so we're casting the spell for its escape cost. The total cost is 1 white mana and exiling 2 cards from your graveyard. All right. Then we get into the part of the show where we pay the mana cost. We activate mana abilities. So at this stage, we need 1 white mana, so we'll tap a plains or something to get a white mana in our mana pool. Great. Then we will pay the costs, and we can pay these costs in any order. So just to spice things up, let's pay the second cost here of exiling 2 other cards from the graveyard. Boom. Oh, hey, and check that out. That's 1 or more cards leaving your graveyard. So that's cool. Quintorius will trigger again. And then we have to finish paying the cost, which is we'll feed our 1 white mana to Sentinel's Eyes. And then, congratulations, we have finished casting our spell, right? So now we have these 2 triggered abilities from Quintorius. This ability has triggered twice. And now that we have finished casting Sentinel's Eyes, we'll put those triggers on the stack and they will wait to resolve. Right? So does all this make sense? Do we see how kind of granular we get and why it's important that we move the spell to the stack first before we do other stuff, and how, that might happen? All this to say, you should, if you're playing Quintorius and you want to upgrade the precon, you probably should be playing, Underworld Breach. That's the card.
There you go.
If you're okay with being a bracket 3, Underworld Breach is an amazing card.
Lots of people think casting a spell is one event. As we can see, individual steps of that process are separate events for purposes of triggering abilities. Yes,
we'll talk a little bit in a little later in the stream. And also, actually, if you really want to know more about triggered abilities, please go check out that last judge or the previous judge talk we did on priority, the stack, and turn structure, because we go into a lot of that. But we'll do some examples later.
Put a link for that in chat here.
Thank you. Check out that link later, because right now we're learning about this.
Yes.
But we will do some talking later in the stream as well about we'll do some more show some more examples about how these triggered abilities trigger. But for now, y'all are doing great. I think we've earned another boosty break.
I think we have too, and I want to crack some more packs. I want another silver scroll. Those are fancy to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I found out that Adnaz is going for like $45.
Ooh boy!
Yeah,
all right.
And that's not even a foil one.
CEDH players love their
they do
love their ad nauseums, huh?
Yeah, and again, this boosty break is brought to you by Gerudo. We would not be able to have access to these packs if Gerudo did not provide them for us. We're very excited about that. Thank you, Gerudo. And if you have not yet made a Gerudo account, please do that. It is free to do so. It is our favorite digital home for the trading card game community, and yeah, we play games on there all the time. In fact, all of our streams we use Gerudo for, so it's great. It's also important to keep in mind that these triggers don't go on the stack until after it has become cast. You're correct. You are correct. That is what we talked about. All right, we're gonna crack into pack 1 here, friends. And also, just a quick reminder, that stream that we have coming up on Monday that is also sponsored by Gerudo. We're going to be learning how to play Cataclysm Arcade. It's another trading card game that has just come out. And it's a great game. It's designed by one of the greatest minds in Magic, Brian David Marshall. And yeah, we're gonna have an awesome time with it.
A great game for playing with your packs.
It's a great game for playing with your packs, indeed. All right. So we have Hydro Channeler here. We've got Page Loose Leaf. I keep wanting to do fun things with this, but in limited. But I just never get enough of them.
You got to make the Page Loose Leaf and Ancestral Anger limited deck.
Yeah. Eager Glyph Mage. I think maybe that just means I'm not brave enough.
No, maybe.
Expressive Fire Dancer. Ink Shape Demonstrator.
I learned that lesson with Tempest Hawk in Dragonstorm. Sometimes you can pull it off.
All right.
Tablet of Discovery, another good card.
Yeah, you want this, right?
I think so. I think that's in my list, yeah.
Yeah. Topiary Lecturer. And then what do we have here?
I think that's Locust Spray, just based on the presence of that extra mana symbol, but I will...
It is in...
Boop. Golly, I keep clicking on the Japanese versions. Yes, it's Locust Spray.
Locust Spray, indeed. Yeah,
thanks, Gwen.
Okay. All right, very nice. Locust Spray. Bitter Triumph.
Wow, that's a fun one.
Okay, it's a great card. Great card. And we've got an island, which is very helpful for your Quintorius deck.
Yes. Every time I look at those, like out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, that's an Avatar land. That person's waterbending. But it's not. It's a Strixhaven land.
Vastland Scavenger. Hey, Brad, we should. This is for our friend who likes foil bears.
Good bear.
I like this. It's a very good bear. All right. We have Stensian Sanguinist. This is this casts Exsanguinate. This has
very cool.
Its prepared spell is Exsanguinate, and it's from the commander decks. Very nice. Shattered Sanctum. This is one of the
nice.
It enters tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. But actually, apparently, what's inside of these portals is Hexhaven.
Yeah.
You learned about if you are in doing the reality fracture, whatever spoiler, whatever things. Apparently, what is inside of that little thing is a window into Hexhaven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're gonna because I think they're gonna finish the cycle in Hexhaven, and I imagine the borderless will be from the other side of the portal.
Yeah. Brotherhood's End, Foil Mystical Archives. And Geometer's Arthropod.
That's fun.
Borderless.
Field Notes, whatever.
Yes, quite. And then our token is a goat and a fungus beast. 2 of the most useful tokens in the whole world.
Goatest of all time. That's what that stands for, right?
Yeah, of course. All right, I am then going to open our second Collecty Boosty here. One more collector booster pack to go from this after this pack. And then we'll have and one more boosty break after this. After this boosty break is done, we'll have 3 more packs, and we'll have opened the entire box. All right. So we have a landscape painter. I realize I can just look over at your monitor and see if I'm in frame or not. I don't need to.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Anyway, Embrace the Paradox. Rubble Rouser. We rousing some rubble.
Mm-hmm.
Little Horseshoe Crab. Yeah, I agree. Fields of Strife. Living History. Fractal Tender. Thunderdrum Soloist. Had, I think, 3 of these in our limited pool whenever we did Two-Headed Giant.
Oh, yeah, that card's insane for
this
Two-Headed
card
Giant.
is nuts. Yeah. Stargaze. This is a non-foil one, but it's still very nice. Okay. Return the Favor. This is foil Mystical Archives. Then we have a foil Forest. Then we get to the party section. Ooh, Mathemagics.
Ooh.
This is a card that I have died to in limited so many times. Oh my gosh. People love, like, getting this to 8 and then just, like, completely ruining it.
Get wrecked.
Prismari, Pianist. This is from the Commander decks. This is extended art non-foil. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, make a 1/1 elemental. If that spell's mana value is 5 or greater, make 3 of them instead.
Ooh.
We have an extended art non-foil applied geometry. And then we've got, this is not a silver scroll, but what is this here? Let's see if I can find it.
We got Reprieve.
Ooh, very nice. Very nice, very nice.
Quinn and
White
JJ are both on
counterspells.
it.
Both of you are so good at this.
We appreciate
We
your...
really should have done so much more research than what we did. Hey, Brad, you like this one?
Ah.
You want this one for your deck, don't you?
I hadn't been thinking about it, but I think it might be pretty good.
The Hardened Academic. This is a 2-drop flying haste bird. Discard a card. This creature gains lifelink until end of turn. We love that. And then, whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. He's pretty good. This is an extended art foil. And then we have the art for Sylvan Library by Ekaterina Burmach.
Very cool.
That's one of the special guest cards, if I remember correctly. Excuse me here. All right. Last pack of this boosty break. And then we will learn some more. We will have 1 more boosty break and then call it done. All right. Let's see here. Bada bing. There we are. All right. Biblioplex Tome Keeper. Hungry Giraffalon, or Graffalon, not Graffalon. Graffalon sounds like a Pokemon name, doesn't it?
It does.
Masterful Flourish. Hardened Academic looks so cool. I vibe with the owl. I do too. I vibe with the owl as well. Banishing Betrayal. Campus Composer. This prepares Aqueous Aria. Forum Necroscribe.
Oh,
this card
what a card.
is just insane. I don't know if any of y'all have played with this in Limited before, but this card just straight up puts something from your graveyard onto the battlefield whenever you target anything of yours with an instant or sorcery. This thing is insane.
It's wild.
And it has ward discard a card, which is also insane in Limited.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this card is nuts. It's nuts. It's the nuts. Daydream. Zombify. Speaking of putting things from your graveyard directly onto the battlefield. Hop to it, Bun Buns.
Yeah. Get your little goobers.
There you go. Forum Necroscribe is sweet. I agree. Ooh, we have a... I almost said a mountain. Oh my gosh. We have a swamp. All right, now we're getting to the party part of the pack here. Here we are. Maelstrom Artisan.
Good old Hoovin' and Groovin'.
What was it? Why do you call it Hoovin' and Groovin' again?
So that card was first spoiled in a non-English language, and the lovely team at Scryfall, when that happens, when they translate the cards, they give those cards really fun names, and the fun name for that card was Hoovin' and Groovin'.
Hoovin' and Groovin'. That's incredible. All right. Oh, okay. Defiling Dagmoth. Now, this is from the Commander decks. This is extended art non-foil. When a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you gain 1 life. It has Menace. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses X life, where X is the amount of life you gained this turn. That's cool.
Ooh, we have a friend that might like that.
We sure do.
Another Hooven and Grooven.
We do have another Hooven and Grooven. Wow, you spy a card with an alternate cost? Question mark. Yeah, there you go. Hooven and Grooven indeed. Ooh, force of will, bada bing. Money sounds, money sounds.
All right.
This is, I think, our second
Yeah.
force of will, because you can open these in regular booster packs, and we've opened many.
Yeah, I opened one
booster
on
packs.
one of our sealed streams.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Now, granted, in sealed, this feels a little bit worse. Like, you don't really want to play Force of Will in limited, but Force of Will and literally everything else is so good, and we are so happy. This is our second one. Wow, we're gonna have to so we're gonna be insufferable to play Commander against. Is what this comes down to, because we have so many free counter spells now.
Don't trust us when we're tapped out.
Yeah, don't trust us when we're tapped out. Yeah. Storm Carved Coast. This is another one of those that has the Hex Haven inside. Borderless foil. Very nice, very nice. And then we have the Fractal and the Pest. That was a nice pack. I approve. I approve of this message. Thank you so much, Garudo. We appreciate you. We would not be able to have these without you. So thank you so much. And now we're going to cast all kinds of counter spells on our friends.
And we know the steps to do that.
Yes, we do.
All right. Let's get now back to our regularly scheduled program that involves looking at me. All right. So we have done a lot of putting things on the stack. So let's maybe take a crack at getting them off the stack, because the stack's getting kind of congested right now. There's a lot going on, hard to keep track of. So the steps we follow to resolve a spell or ability largely kind of depends on what kind of thing we're resolving. So what I want to do is break this down into two categories. The first of which will be instants, sorceries, and abilities, and then the second of which will be for permanent spells. Okay, so right before an instant, sorcery, or ability begins to resolve, we're going to do another legality check. So first, for example, for triggered abilities, we'll check to see if we still satisfy the conditions of the intervening if clause, if it has one. If we don't currently meet the restrictions of the if clause, we will remove the ability from the stack without resolving it. Note that this is the second time we are checking to see if we satisfy the conditions of the intervening if clause. So an example, for just to give some context, Archpriest of Iona here has this triggered ability with an intervening if clause. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, target creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains flying until end of turn. So in your first main phase, we'll say you play a creature that completes your party. You have a cleric, a rogue, a warrior, and a wizard. You then move into combat. At the beginning of combat, Archpriest of Iona sees your party is full, so that ability will trigger and get put on the stack. Now, your opponent is feeling a little mean, and they don't like wizards for some reason. So
I'm always feeling mean, and I don't like wizards. I vibe with that.
So with Archpriest of Iona's triggered ability still on the stack, they remove your wizard. It's gone. So as this triggered ability checks, or as it resolves, it's going to check again to see if your party is still full. Seeing that your party is no longer full, this ability will not resolve and just be removed from the stack. Sorry, no one gets buffed. Now, for any resolving spell or ability with targets, we're also going to check to make sure that its targets are still legal. So now, as long as at least one of the targets is still legal, the spell will resolve and will perform as many of the steps of that spell as we can on as many targets that are still legal. If all of a spell's targets are illegal, then that spell or ability will just be removed from the stack without resolving. And then if it is represented by a card, that card will go to its owner's graveyard. Now, when we're resolving a spell or ability, we will perform the steps, the instructions of that spell or ability in the order they are written. So, for example, here, let's look at Inscription of Abundance. Let's say you cast Inscription of Abundance and you kicked it, and you have chosen all of the modes, right? So you're going to put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. Target player is going to gain X life, where X is the greatest power among creatures they control, and then target creature you control fights target creature you don't control, and you will perform those steps in that order. right? You can't change the order and resolve them in whatever order you want. It's always start from the top and work down.
What are we, lawless?
Exactly.
Yeah, we have to.
There's
There's
rules we have to follow
structure.
here.
We must do which we must adhere.
And something you may find too, if you as you get more familiar with cards, Wizards of the Coast will generally order these in the most beneficial way, right? So like you can see, you could put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature you control, then gain life equal to its power, then have it fight something, right? If that put 2+1/+1 counters was on the bottom, it would feel a little bit out of order. Now, just as an example to talk about targets real quick, right? So say I'm casting Inscription of Abundance, I target my Runeclaw Bear, I target myself, and then I have I target my Runeclaw Bear to fight target whatever you control. And in response, you destroy my Runeclaw Bear, right? Runeclaw Bear is no longer a legal target, so I won't put 2+1/+1 counters on anything. I will still gain X life, where X is the greatest power among creatures I control, because I'm still a legal target for Inscription of Abundance. And then because my target for the fight is no longer on the battlefield, the fight will not happen, right? So that's an example of we'll do as much as we can, but as long as at least one target is still legal, we will resolve them as much of the spell as possible. Okay. Now, for some spells will have sentences or phrases later in the spell's text that could inform how a particular instruction is meant to be performed. For example, Flesh to Dust here says, destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated. That sentence, it can't be regenerated, though it appears later in the effect, exists to inform how we are performing the destroy target creature effect. Or with Memory Lapse, counter target spell. If that spell is countered, put it on top of its owner's library instead of into that player's graveyard. That second sentence is there to inform how we are performing the counter target spell action. So sometimes you kind of have to take a couple phrases or sentences lumped together, right? Look for the individual actions that are being performed, not necessarily just doing it word for word, one word or sentence at a time. Okay? Now, some spells or abilities will have multiple players performing actions. If that is the case, performing actions or making decisions. If that is the case, then we will resolve those decisions or actions will be performed in what we call active player, non-active player order. That just means if it's my turn, I'm the active player. So I would make all of the choices that I'm instructed to make for this spell or ability. Then the next player in turn order would do the same. So for example, with Torment of Hailfire here, it says, repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. If I am casting Torment of Hailfire, right, then starting with the next player in turn order, they would choose if they want to lose 3 life, sacrifice a non-land permanent, or discard a card. Then the next player in turn order would make that choice, then the following player until every player has made that choice. Then all of those actions would be performed at the same time, and if, assuming X was 2 or more, we would repeat that process. So then the player to my left would make the choice, the player across from me would make the choice, so on and so forth. We would all perform the actions at the same time. Some resolving spells or abilities will have you distributing or dividing effects between some number of untargeted objects, right? So Blessing of Frost here says distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of creatures you control. So with these, remember, this is different from something like Rolling Thunder, where we're distributing or dividing an effect among some number of targeted things. That is announced as you're casting that spell or activating that ability. But if it doesn't target anything, you will announce that distribution as part of the spell's resolution, right? So there's not a time between where, like, if I'm saying, right, I'm going to have cast Blessing of Frost, I spent 4 snow mana on it, so I'm going to put 2 +1/+1 counters on this Runeclaw Bear and 2 1/1 counters on this Savannah Lions. There's not really a period of time for a player to interact between when I am making that choice and when those counters are placed on those things. Okay? Some resolving spells or abilities will ask for information about an object. Those that do, that information is determined when that spell is resolving. So, for example, if we have Captain Ripley Vance in play, Whenever you cast your third spell each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Captain Ripley Vance, then it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So as its triggered ability is resolving, you will put a +1/+1 counter on Captain Ripley Vance and then determine what its power is supposed to be. Assuming it didn't have any counters on it before, this number is 4. So Captain Ripley Vance would deal 4 damage to whatever you targeted. However, if Captain Ripley Vance is no longer on the battlefield, say you triggered this effect, and someone destroyed Captain Ripley Vance in response to this trigger, right? We'll just use whatever the last known information we had, right? If the object that you're trying to determine information from is no longer in the public zone that it's supposed to be in this case, the battlefield, then you'll use the last known information about that object from the last time it was in that zone, right? So we've triggered Captain Ripley Vance. Before the trigger resolves, someone gets rid of it. As this triggered ability is resolving, we obviously can't put a +1/+1 counter on Captain Ripley Vance because it's no longer on the battlefield. And the last time it was on the battlefield, its power was 3. So it would deal 3 damage to whatever it's targeting. Okay? Does that make sense? I know that can be a little confusing, but if it's no longer where it's supposed to be, we use last known information. Okay? Now, the last part of this process is if whatever you're resolving is an instant or sorcery, it's represented by an actual card. That card will be put into its owner's graveyard as part of the resolution, like as the last step of resolving that spell. Okay. We love it. Some spells or abilities may instruct you to cast other spells as part of their resolution. Some examples of this include the worst mechanic ever made, Cascade, EDH super staple Villainous Wealth, which has you exiling some number of cards from an opponent's library and casting them, or some effects like impulse draw effects, like red effects, right? Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. Now, there tends to be some confusion, right? There's a little bit of nuance to how these abilities resolve based on their words. So I want to try to clear up that confusion for everybody. And we're going to do that by talking about we're going to put these effects in 2 categories. The first category we're going to talk about is an effect that lets you play those cards or cast those spells for a set duration of time.
I feel like I get a lot of questions about this in Commander especially.
Yes, because there are tiny differences in the way that these cards are worded that have some pretty big implications. So an example of this first category is something like Reckless Impulse. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. Or it might be for as long as this card remains exiled, you may cast this card. Or on any turn you attacked with a token, you can cast the cards that are exiled with this card. These effects give you permission to play or cast the set of cards for the course of that duration, right? They say, this is a thing that you are allowed to do. So because of this, you will have to follow the normal timing restrictions of the cards you want to play. I.e., if Reckless Impulse exiled an instant, you could cast that instant anytime you have priority. But if it exiled a sorcery or a creature or an enchantment, you would have to wait until you have priority during one of your main phases while the stack is empty in order to be able to cast those cards, right? Our other category is for effects that just say, play those cards. Right? Examples of this include Villainous Wealth, like we looked at, or Cascade, or my other mortal enemy, Etali. This is Etali Primal Storm. It has this triggered ability when it attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana costs, right? This does not set a duration for when you are allowed to do this. These effects are a set of instructions. They say, perform this action right now. You are casting these spells as part of the resolution of this triggered ability. So you do it now or you do it never, right? And the big reason why these things are different is because, right, Etali's triggered ability, or the resolution of Villainous Wealth, is telling you to cast a spell in the middle of the resolution of another effect. And generally, that's not allowed. So the game rules provide a special exception for casting, for when an effect instructs you to cast a spell as part of its resolution. It says, we're going to allow you to do that because the resolving spell or ability is saying that you can do that, right? So you see how that's different? So with Etali's attack trigger, as this trigger is resolving, you can cast any of the spells that it exiles, even things that aren't instants, because realistically, at this time, you wouldn't even be allowed to cast an instant because we're resolving a triggered ability. Does that make sense? So if the effect gives you a duration for which you are allowed to play those cards, then you have to follow timing restrictions. If it does not give you a duration, it just says cast those spells now, you cast it now, or you cast it never, right? Make sense?
And I just want to let you all know how dedicated Brad is to teaching you all, because he just put that dinosaur on the screen, and it is his least favorite card.
It's
and
my
actually
least
second
favorite.
least favorite card. The other iteration of Etali
Yes.
is his least favorite card in all of Magic the Gathering. So we just let's just give it up for Brad's dedication
Thank
to
you.
education here, right? Yeah.
I'm willing to set aside my petty squabbles for your benefit, Chad. All right, another quick distinction that I want to call out is some of these cards will say you may play those cards. Some of them say you may cast those cards, or you may cast spells from among those cards. And this is also another important distinction. Any effect that says you may play those cards that's code for, or a shorthand for, you may cast spells from among those cards and play lands from among those cards. Note that this does not grant you additional land plays, right? So if you have resolved, or if you've resolved Reckless Impulse and one of the cards you exiled was a basic land, but you've already played a land that turn, Reckless Impulse would not allow you to play that second land. It just means that if you have the ability to play the land, you can. Conversely, if the effect only says cast, right? You may cast those cards or cast spells from among those cards. This will only let you cast spells. You will not be able to play lands from among that set of cards. Make sense? Okay. Let's get into talking about permanent spells. I'm thirsty, so I'm going to take a quick drink before we do that. All right. Now, for the most part, resolving permanent spells is easier because they mostly just want to become permanents when they resolve. And most permanent spells also don't have targets, so there's not really a lot of legality checking that has to happen for most permanent spells. So if a permanent spell has no targets, it just resolves and becomes a permanent. Check. If some permanent spells do have targets, such as auras or mutated creature spells.
Or spaghetti monsters?
Those spaghetti monsters probably have cast triggers.
That's
And so that would be a triggered ability that is put on the stack as you're casting it. The permanent spell itself would not have any targets. Another important distinction. Thank you for calling that out, Stephanie. Okay, so for permanent spells that have targets, we are going to do a legality check before the spell resolves to see if its targets are still legal. If its targets are still legal, then a resolving aura spell would become an aura permanent attached to the player or object that you targeted with it. And a mutated creature spell, rather than entering the battlefield, will simply merge with whatever thing you targeted. If, however, the targets are illegal, then a resolving aura spell simply wouldn't resolve. It would just get put into its owner's graveyard, much like you would an instant or sorcery, unless that resolving aura spell is a bestowed aura spell. So if you're not familiar with bestow, it's an alternate casting cost that appears on enchantment creatures that allows you to cast them as an aura. So if I were to cast Night Howler for its bestow cost and I targeted a creature, if you removed that creature, Night Howler would still resolve. It would just be a creature instead of an aura. And mutate works much the same way. If I tried to mutate Gemrazor onto something and before Gemrazor resolved, you got rid of that thing, Gemrazor would just enter as a 4/4. So a couple weird exceptions to not having legal targets means your spell doesn't resolve. Additionally, a separate thing, if you make a copy of a permanent spell, such as with Double Major, right? This says copy target creature spell you control, except it isn't legendary. If you have a copy of a permanent spell, when that spell resolves, it will become a token as it enters. Notably, this does not count as creating a token because this does not meet the definition of creating a token. So this will not be a resolving copy of a permanent spell would not get doubled from doubling season or anything like that. Because you're not creating a token. The operative word there for it is like on Hop to It, right? Create 3/1/1 rabbits. It's a special kind of action, a thing that you do. And a resolving permanent spell is not that. Okay, so we're going to talk now. Your permanent spell has resolved and it wants to enter the battlefield. There are a couple of things that could impact what happens if or before and or after that permanent enters. The first of which is replacement effects. Now, I want to say at the start of this that replacement effects are a topic that's probably deep enough for its own judge talk. So I don't want to get too far into the weeds here. We're just going to limit this discussion strictly to what you need to know for permanents entering the battlefield. Okay? So immediately before a permanent enters, we're going to check to see if there are any replacement effects that would affect how that permanent enters. These are going to be worded as something like this permanent enters with some number or kind of counters, or as this permanent enters, choose a thing. Sarah's emissary jump scare.
Emissary, I think that was a really great spin.
Yes, Sarah's emissary.
Yeah.
I like it. Or it could be something like this permanent enters as a copy of something else, like with Sculpting Steel or clones. It could be this thing enters tapped, like on a lot of non-basic lands. And then, or sometimes they even appear on other cards, right? So Thalia Heretic Cathar says creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter tapped. This is a replacement effect. So if it's an effect that is going to change, going to do something to a permanent when it enters the battlefield, but it doesn't explicitly use the words when, whenever, or at, then it is probably a replacement effect. Whereas if it used when, whenever, or at, that would be a triggered ability. Okay? Now, in order for a replacement effect to apply to an event, it has to exist before the event it's trying to replace. So here's an example of what we mean by that. Take a look at Victimize. Victimize is a spell that when it resolves can return 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. As, say, if your targets were, for example, Llanowar Elves and Renata Call to the Hunt, right? Renata has this replacement effect. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. This is a replacement effect. Because of the way that Victimize resolves, Llanowar Elves and Renata will be entering the battlefield at the same time. And because Renata's replacement effect doesn't exist before Llanowar Elves is entering the battlefield, Llanowar Elves will not enter with a +1/+1 counter, right? Renata would have to be on the battlefield before Llanowar Elves enters in order for Llanowar Elves to get a +1/+1 counter. Make sense? Okay, so we're resolving a permanent spell. We have checked for and applied the relevant replacement effects. So now the permanent in question is going to enter. And this is the time when we start checking for triggered abilities. So if you want to know more about the specifics of triggered abilities and when and how they trigger, again, please go check out that Judge Talk. Steph put the link in chat a couple times for it. You can find it on Gerudo's YouTube channel. Here we go. But for this case, we're going to talk just about enters triggers and how they affect permanents that are entering the battlefield. So the thing you need to know about triggered abilities is that the game checks if any abilities should trigger based on the game state immediately after an event occurs. So for enters triggers, this looks like, say we're resolving an Elvish Visionary. This has a triggered ability that when it enters, you will draw a card. So Elvish Visionary is resolving. it enters the battlefield. Immediately after Elvish Visionary enters the battlefield, the game is going to do a quick survey of the board state to see if any abilities should trigger. And when it gets to Elvish Visionary, it'll go, oh, hey, Elvish Visionary has a triggered ability that triggers when it enters the battlefield. Let's get that ability on the stack for you. As another example, if we could maybe look back to our example with Victimize earlier, but change the cards a little bit. So we resolve Victimize, but this time we're going to return Soul Warden and Llanowar Elves to the battlefield. Now, we know from our last discussion on Victimize that these two creatures will enter the battlefield at the same time. And immediately after they enter, the game is going to do its little survey of the game state, and it's going to go, when it gets to Soul Warden, it's going to go, hey, check this out. A creature that isn't Soul Warden entered the battlefield. So let's get Soul Warden's trigger on the stack, right? So hopefully you can see with, oh wow, that's a lot of gift subs.
Ooh, congratulations,
Wow.
Oki Tengu, Phantom PhD, JJ Mickey, Gozer, and Earth Thean. Congrats on the gift subs, and thank you so much to
Yay.
Anonymous for gifting those.
Thanks, friend.
Choo choo, we are on our way to a hype train. Or no, we do have a
Wow.
hype train happening. We're at level 2.
Ooh,
How
very
exciting.
fun.
Awooga, awooga.
Okay. So hopefully you can see now the difference between replacement effects have to exist before the event they're trying to replace, but triggered abilities only have to exist immediately after the event happens, right? And so I want to clarify, when I say the game checks the game state immediately after an event occurs, I do mean immediately, okay? So let's look at an example to demonstrate what I'm trying to get at here. Say you have Temur Ascendancy. This is an enchantment that says whenever a creature you control with power 4 or greater enters, you may draw a card. You then cast an Ivy Elemental, and the actual thing I want on this slide is not here, so we're going to have to be a little bit flexible. So Ivy Elemental is a creature. For X and a green, it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. This creature, this replacement effect, right? Ivy Elemental X enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. It enters, and as far as the game is concerned, Ivy Elemental was always a 4/4. So it'll enter, and Temur Ascendancy will see that a creature with power 4 or greater has entered and give you the option to draw a card. I'm going to see if I can quickly... Nope, I don't think I can. And that's just going to have to be okay, chat. Actually, give me 1 second. There it is. Let's get this out of here. Bye. All right. Back to the action. Swap. Okay, so here we are. Elvish Visionary, whatever. Temur Ascendancy. So remember our talk about Ivy Elemental. Let's look instead at Wild Hypothesis. This is a sorcery. For X and a green, it creates a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token and puts X +1/+1 counters on it. So as Wild Hypothesis is resolving, we are creating a 0/0 fractal creature token. This token enters as a 0/0, not a creature with power 4 or greater, so it will not trigger Temur Ascendancy. The token enters, and then we're putting 4 +1/+1 counters on it. Do you see how those things are different? How one is entering as a 4/4 and the other is entering as a 0/0 and then having counters placed on it after the fact, and why that second one will not trigger Temur Ascendancy. So hopefully you can see like just how granular triggered abilities can be. But again, if you have questions, please feel free to ask them, or you can check out that other Judge Talk where we talk more about this in detail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, y'all have been doing great. This has been a lengthy and heady stream. I appreciate you all hanging in there. Let's do a boosty break, huh?
This is our last boosty
As a
break.
treat.
Yes. Okay. And before, can you actually go back to the graphic really quickly?
Yes,
We're
I
gonna talk
will.
really quickly again about our stream coming up for Cataclysm Arcade. We would love to teach you how to play on Monday. That will be Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern. This is a post-apocalyptic A game set in post-apocalyptic New York. It's playable out of a single booster pack. If y'all follow our content, you know how much we love Limited and Magic, and this game is all about being able to play games with a single booster pack. In fact, the creator made this game because he ran a game store for a little while, and kids came in and bought a pack of Pokemon and sat down and were like, "Okay, I want to play now," and we couldn't do it. And so that's the whole reason he made this game. He wanted it to be able to be playable out of a single booster pack, and so we're going to show you how that works. Got a little bit of Commander vibes going on here, so if you're a Commander player, I think you're really going to like this game. Each deck or each booster pack has a boss, and you get to play with that boss basically in your command zone. It's a whole thing. We're going to show you on Monday. Please show up. All right. We have boosties here, and one more thing I want to tell you about. So before Monday happens, our normal stream cadence is Sunday and Tuesday nights. This Sunday we are playing Secrets of Strixhaven sealed, so we are doing some 1v1 sealed with that. So we've got 12 boosties here in this cute little acrylic box thing here. But yes, so we'll do some 1v1 sealed on Sunday night at 10 p.m. and then on Monday we're going to teach you how to play Cataclysm Arcade in the afternoon. So you're going to have a lot of us this weekend, and we hope that's okay. Last 3 boosties, let's do it. Thank you, Gerudo, for giving us these boosties. We appreciate you, and thank you for sponsoring the stream. All right, we have a hype chest. I'm going to share. We have an emote, and apparently it's a very nice fish. We like the
Oh, that is a very nice fish.
All right. Melancholic Poet. Stone Docent. Stadium Title Mage.
Hey, there's
Wild
that
Hypothesis. Hey, it's like they knew. It's like they knew.
Wow.
Killian's Confidence. What a card this is. This thing is a house. This thing is a house. It's so good. Muse Seeker. Rabid Attack. All right, and we have, this is a Japanese, I don't know, this is not Silver Scroll. You know what this is?
Let's find out if I can get to it before Quinn does. This is Repel Calamity.
Ooh, okay. That's Repel Calamity. Very nice. That's destroy target creature with power 4 or greater.
Power or toughness.
Power or toughness 4 or greater. Very nice. We have Spell Pierce.
Very
Foil
cool.
Mystical Archives. We love. And a Plains. Hey, Brad.
Give me those planes, baby.
There we go. Hardened Academic. Love that. We got a border. We got an extended art one of that here. Leitmotif Composer. This is from the Commander decks. This says this is an extended art non-foil. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value 5 or greater, make a token that's a copy of this creature. Pay 3 mana. Creatures named Leitmotif Composer can't be blocked this turn. Wild.
Nice. Very cool. Fun.
The Dawning Archaic. This is that 10/10. Again, this is not a foil, but this is the borderless treatment, the Field Notes version, which is cool. Preordain, non-foil Mystical Archives. We love Preordain. Ooh, Silver Scroll.
Ooh.
Silver Scroll. Let's see what this is.
It's a multicolored one. It's probably like, what is it, Fracture maybe? Sorry, I'm still trying to...
this is Fracture. Yes, this is Fracture. This is a $14 card. That's nice.
Very cool.
Yeah, very nice, very nice.
All right,
nice.
That Silver Scroll treatment is really nice.
It is really nice. It is very cool. And then we have the foil Elemental and Treasure. Very nice. All right. We'll set these over here. We'll open another one. Yeah. I like those Silver Scroll foils. I just wish I could read them. You know what I mean? Like, I wish they had Silver Scroll things in English, because I just like, I am bad at remembering card text, and I just need to be able to read it in game. Like, I don't have that encyclopedic knowledge that Brad has. Essence Scatter, Pest Mascot. This is another one that if you have like a ton of it in your pool for...
Yeah, turn 2 Bogwater Lumerette into turn 3 Pest Mascot. You're feeling pretty good.
Yeah. Visionary's Dance. This is a great card. I like this. Is one of my favorite cards in the limited format, because it's good early and it's good late. It's good all the time. Titan's Grave. Teacher's Pest.
That's a good one.
Yes. Emil Vastlands Roamer. This thing, kill it immediately if it's on the board.
Yeah.
I don't care what archetype you're playing it in. Just kill it immediately. Kirol.
Kirol.
History buff. Emphasis on the buff.
Ooh.
Okay.
Is that green?
It is green.
It is. I've got it here. I just got to get the English version. Pick your poison.
Okay. Okay.
Well done, Quinn. Well done.
Quinn is just so quick with this. We really should have studied these better. Knockout maneuver. Mystical Archives. Non-foil. And then we have an island. Together as one.
5-color soup
converge
payoff.
Card. Yes. 5-color soup. Defacing Dusk Mage. This casts Vandal's Edit. Draw 2 cards. Each player loses 2 life. This is from the commander set. It has Death Touch, and when an opponent draws their second card each turn, it becomes prepared.
Nice. That's very cool.
Comforting Council, the okayest rare in the set. Extended art. This is a non-foil X and a.
That's got to be
white.
prismatic ending.
This is prismatic ending. Yeah.
It's got all them colors on it.
All them colors. It's
All
got
them their colors there.
colors.
Yeah, prismatic ending.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice.
Pending.
Wisdom of Ages is our last rare in the pack. This is an extended art foil.
Very fun.
And then we have the art card. Art card for the command tower.
Very nice.
Okay.
All right, this is the last boosty.
Last boosty of the whole collector box,
Here we
everybody.
go.
The last one, the very last boosty. Let's ask. Let's send good vibes out into the universe for a Force of Will Silver Scroll foil.
Oh yeah.
That's like over $1,000 right now.
Okay.
Let's just send some vibes out in the universe, right? You think I'm spelling prismatic that quick?
You haven't practiced quick typing prismatic?
All right. Hungry Graflon. Wilt in the Heat.
That card almost made an appearance on the stream today.
Yeah?
Yep, I went with Quintorius instead.
Of course you always go with Quintorius. Banishing Betrayal. Potioner's Trove. Love this card in the limited format. I feel like it's so useful in a lot of ways. Abstract Paint Mage. Pest Brood Sloth. Matter Bending Mage. Shared Roots.
Very nice.
This is a. I don't know.
I feel like it's got to be
green.
giant growth.
It does seem like something is growing giantly, doesn't it?
Do you see a +3/+3 on there?
I do see a +3/+3.
Yeah, it's got to be giant growth.
Yeah, there we go. Big Fox.
Big Fox.
That's what they call Brad.
Ooh,
All right.
another mountain.
Got another mountain for you. Pox Plague, also known as 1 HKO and Two-Headed Giant if you position yourselves correctly. Rutha,
Ooh.
Mastering the Moment. This is the base commander of the commander deck.
Yeah.
The Prismari commander deck. She's great. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, make an XX blue and red elemental creature token with flying and haste, where X is the greatest mana value among instant and sorcery spells you've cast this turn.
Very
She's
fun.
very good. We played against a Rutha deck this past weekend the last weekend, I guess, at CGCon. Stirring Hope Singer,
Bird Brad.
We call it Bird Brad because it's a bird bard, but it sounds funnier when you call it Bird Brad. But yes, this has Flying Lifelink and Repartee to put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. It's the extended art non-foil. Empty the Warrens. The Warrens were too full anyway, but yeah, we're gonna make some goblins and we're gonna storm about it. Which I'm not trying to trigger you from this past. This
Oh,
video
yeah,
this
right.
week. I'm really not. I promise. And then we have Hooven and Grooven here. That's our third copy of Hooven and Grooven. Maelstrom Artisan. That is our last rare in the pack. What a box! I'm excited about that. We did well. We did well. Thank you so much, Garuda. We appreciate you. And I'm excited to go through these and make some upgrades to commander decks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a good time.
All right. I'm back. You're stuck with me. Okay, friends. You've been doing great. We really appreciate you sticking it out with us for this long.
We're on the home stretch.
We've covered basically all of the content we wanted to cover. We're just going to do some final knowledge check questions just to drive home some finer points and give you some a chance to flex the things that you've been learning today. So, first, we're going to do a little bit of a lightning round with Brazen Borrower here. So, you control Lier, Disciple of the Drowned, and you have a Brazen Borrower in your graveyard. Well, the first thing I want to know from you is, can you cast Brazen Borrower's Adventure, Petty Theft, via Lier's flashback ability? So we're going to get a poll going. We've got a yes or a no. Do some thinking, reflecting on the things that we talked about earlier to remember, and give me what you think is happening here.
All right, poll has been started.
I'll get some more water. Ooh, we're starting strong with a 50-50 tie.
I like it.
We love when there's dissension.
I love when there's dissension.
Yeah, they're actually, honestly, there probably comes a point where it looks better on me if there's less dissension. But for now, we love teachable moments.
I love learning opportunities. That's what I love. Your pride can just go somewhere else, because we don't care about it. We care about learning opportunities here, Brad.
Mm-hmm. We gotta do our best to, yeah. So we have Nick and in chat saying that Matt Tabak has displayed some dissatisfaction regarding how Lier and Adventures work, so this might change in the future. But for now, we have a 67-33 split, 4-2 in favor of yes. And the yeses do have it. And this is kind of a weird one. It's not very intuitive, and this is probably the kind of thing that Tabak is looking to change. So the short answer here is yes, right? This card reads, or Lier reads, each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback. The flashback cost is equal to the card's mana cost. Brazen Borrower is not it's just a creature card in your graveyard. However, this is an example, one of those times where, like we talked about with Melek, where we are allowed to try to cast Petty Theft from our graveyard because we would be casting an instant or sorcery spell, so it could have flashback if it was an instant card, right?
If it was an instant.
It's weird, but here we are. Now, follow-up question. We have successfully cast Petty Theft. As Petty Theft resolves, both Flashback and Adventure want to exile Brazen Borrower as it resolves. So my question to you is, after it's exiled, can you cast Brazen Borrower from exile? So we're going to get another poll going. Another yes or no. We'll see what everyone thinks.
We have started it.
All right. Yep. So, yeah. So the specifics here, right? Both Flashback says as the spell resolves, exile it, and Adventure. The rules for Adventure spells also say as the spell resolves, exile it. So the question is, and specifically Adventure says, while it's exiled, you can cast it. So what we want to know here is, does the addition of Flashback muddy the waters or not?
Get those votes in there. Get a little bit of dissension here. 50-50 split.
A nice 50-50 split. All right. I'm very excited. All right. So, we end up with the old 50-50 split, 3-3. So, this is another example of the eyes having it. So, here's the thing. With Flashback and with with Flashback and with Adventure, those are both replacement effects that are like changing how this spell is resolving. And you do get to choose the order in which those replacement effects apply. So you are right there, Quinn. However, as your spell is resolving, both of your replacement effects want to put this card in exile. And so regardless of which effect you apply, Brazen Borrower is still going to exile. So the adventure part of the spell, because it's still going to the same public zone, can still find it. You can still cast Brazen Borrower from exile. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little weird one. Okay, we're going to do one more question with Brazen Borrower. We just cannot get enough of this little goober. But this time, instead of Lear, right? Forget Lear, he doesn't exist. We have Brazen Borrower in our graveyard. We cast a Snapcaster Mage. Now, Snapcaster Mage says, when Snapcaster Mage enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So, what you want to do is cast Snapcaster Mage, target Brazen Borrower, and cast Petty Theft for its flashback cost. Is this the thing that you are allowed to do? Steph's going to get us another poll.
Mm-hmm.
Another yes or no. Can we flashback Petty Theft in this case?
Not letting me...
Oh.
There we go. No, there's the poll.
Okay, great.
And then after this example, we'll take about 90 seconds and like just pause for a moment, see if we can collect any answers or questions, and maybe answer some questions before we go to our next example. Yeah.
Yep.
Because we're gonna have an ad coming up here after this one. Want to make sure that people aren't missing any of the examples, but have an opportunity to maybe type some questions in the chat and get you to answer them if they would like.
I like it.
There was a weird hiccup for a second. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there, but we're back. Here
Hopefully,
we go.
Yeah. Ooh, excuse me.
Bless you.
Good thing I was able to schedule my sneeze during the poll.
It's true.
So it
Thank
didn't
you
disrupt
for
the
scheduling
flow.
your sneeze.
Yeah. All right. So we had then it was unanimous for most of it, and then at the last second, someone snuck a yes in there. I was creating a pattern where I was like, yes, this thing works. Yes, this thing works. And then I broke the pattern. Oh, hold on. I apparently don't have a big red X there. I wanted to put a big red X there. The answer to this question is no. And so the reason why it's a little bit different. So when when Snapcaster Mage enters, it has a triggered ability that is looking to target an instant or sorcery card in your graveyard. Brazen Borrower is not a legal target for this triggered ability. So you could not target Brazen Borrower with Snapcaster Mage's enters trigger. So the big difference here between Snapcaster Mage and Lear is Lear creates sort of a blanket permission effect, right? He creates an effect that says you can cast instant and sorcery spells from your graveyard. And so this is a way that we can convince the game, hey, I want to cast this instant spell from my graveyard, right? But with Snapcaster Mage, the effect isn't created. The effect that gives you permission to cast that spell isn't created until the triggered ability resolves, right? Until this enters the battlefield, triggered ability resolves. And because Brazen Borrower in your graveyard isn't a legal target for Snapcaster Mage's triggered ability, you can't even target Brazen Borrower with this trigger. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So hopefully, like, you can see how that is a little bit different. Please, if you have any questions, because there was a sort of rapid fire of 3 different things.
Yeah. We're gonna give you all about we're gonna go to an ad break here. But if you have any questions for Brad, type them in the chat here, and then when the ad break is over, we'll get to them, and then we'll see if we can answer them for you about this Brazen Borrower or related related examples here. So let me go ahead and run that ad.
All right. And so for those of you that are still here, welcome to the Secret Podcast.
Secret Podcast.
You have unfettered access to Steel City right now.
It's true. Go ahead and get those questions in there if you have any. But then, we will
Doing a lot of talking.
You are doing a lot of talking.
But we love it. I love hearing myself talk. That's the real reason why we do these. It's under the guise of I want to teach you all magic rules, but the real reason is just I like talking to myself.
He likes hearing his own voice.
Yep.
It's a real problem when you live with him. It's
It's nonstop, really.
Mhm.
This is I would say it's a break for you, but you're stuck down here with me. So
I sure am. You've chained me to the desk, and it's
yeah.
If I didn't have so many shiny cards to look at, I might object. But
Oh boy.
All right, get those questions in there, friends. We have about 30 seconds left of this ad break here, and then we have 2 more examples, and then we'll let you go. Let you go. We'll be done.
This has been a gauntlet.
Yes.
And we appreciate you hanging around.
But like a good one. Like
Yes.
not a gauntlet sounds
Hopefully
like
a good
undesirable obligation, right? But this has been good. This has been good. This has been educational. We've learned so much today. We have learned so much.
I hope that we've learned so much.
I think we have.
That is the goal for
I
this
think we
whole
have.
exercise.
I think we have. All right. I think we can get back in here.
Okay. All right. So welcome back, friends. It seems like we have no questions at this time, so we're going to boldly progress to the next example.
Be like Captain Kirk and boldly go.
So, yes, we haven't talked about Trinisphere yet, and I told you that we would talk about Trinisphere, so we're going to talk about Trinisphere now. So, there's a Trinisphere in play. Doesn't matter who has it. And you want to cast Torgar, Famine Incarnate. Now, Torgar has this first line of text that says, as an additional cost to cast the spell, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature sacrificed this way. Now, you only have 2 untapped swamps, but you do have these 3 very expendable zombie tokens. So, what you want to do is you want to cast Torgar, and as you are making choices for this spell, you declare your intention to sacrifice these 3 zombie tokens to reduce Torgar's cost to just black. So my question to you is, with the resources that you have here, can you successfully cast Torgar? We're going to get another poll going.
I was slacking here.
See what you all think.
Give me 1 second here. So, can you successfully cast Torgar this way? And we'll go yes and no. Here we go. We're going to start the poll now.
All right, get that poll going.
Trinisphere just muddies everything.
Trinisphere is a problem. And it's funny, like there are a few cards that are like that have to have like we made this rule specifically because we printed this card, and I love that Trinisphere is one of them. I'm trying to think of some other ones. For a while, Progenitus was the only card that had protection from everything.
Yeah.
And so there was a rule like there's one card, Progenitus, that has protection from everything, and that's what this means. But they've given more stuff protection from everything now.
Hex Drinker.
Yep. So that's more of a blanket, like this is what protection from everything means now. But
yeah. But you're like a jerk that runs Trinisphere in a commander deck.
You're do.
Like one of those people.
And it's my deck that has Karuga as a companion. So all my cards are 3 mana value or greater anyway. So I am completely unbothered by Trinisphere, and I love it.
Okay, Trinisphere is just causing some problems here in the voting, and so let's see.
All right, going on we have a 60-40 split in favor of yes. Well, I regret to inform you, friends, that the correct answer here is no. We cannot cast Torgar this way. But
why, Brad? But why?
So let's talk about why. So we're going to step through we're going to go through the steps of casting the spell so we can talk about where we get stuck. So the sticking point for this occurs in 2 places, so we're just going to skip straight to those. The first step is when we are making choices for Torgar. So Torgar here, we are going at this step 2. We are going to declare that we are going to pay an additional cost, and that additional cost that we are going to pay is sacrificing these 3 zombie tokens, right? So, very good. We have made our choices for that. We're going to now blaze ahead to the part of the show where we are determining Torgar's total cost. So we're going to start with the base cost, which is 6 black. Then, because we made this choice, we're going to pay this additional cost of casting of sacrificing these 3 zombie tokens, that reduces Torgar's casting cost by 6 generic mana down to just black. Now, so we started with our base cost, we applied our discount from sacrificing these zombie tokens, then we are now at the part of the show where we have to apply Trinisphere's effect, right? And Trinisphere goes, hey, you're only paying 2 mana for this spell. That's not allowed. Let's tack 1 more onto that. Boop. And so now the total cost for Torgar's effect has been locked in at 1 black. And this is now the part of the show where we would move to paying the actual cost, but we don't have the ability to produce 1 black from the mana we have available. So unfortunately, this is a cost we can't pay. We cannot complete the casting of Torgar, and the game will revert to immediately before we proposed that spell.
Trinisphere just causes so many problems. Many problems.
Does this make sense? Does everyone see how this played out, how this works?
Yes.
Please ask questions if there's something that you're stuck on. But we are going to move into our last knowledge check.
So this is the last opportunity for us to show you, or for you to show us, how much you've learned today.
Yes. All right. So now you are understandably a little sad about the whole Torgar thing, right? I would be bummed if I couldn't cast my Torgar.
I'm always sad about Torgar. Let's be real here.
So you're going to try again, but this time you're going to cast Gurmag Angler. This is a creature that has Delve.
So much better than Torgar. Just look at him.
Yeah,
Just look at him.
Look at this little goober. So Delve, if you remember, says you can exile cards from your graveyard to help pay the cost of this spell. So what we want to know, you don't have enough mana to cast Gurmag Angler. You still only have your 2 untapped swamps, but you do have 5 cards in your graveyard that you could exile to this Delve mechanic to help you cast Gurmag Angler. So the question is, this time, could you cast Gurmag Angler with the resources that you have available to you?
Are you trying to trick me? I'm going to start the poll.
Yep.
All right, this is the last question. So everybody get in there. If you haven't gotten in here already, please, now's your chance.
Yes.
Can we cast Gurmag Angler? I like the fish better. I feel like he's just more amicable. He looks more amicable than Torgar.
Yeah, look at
for
that
no
happy
other
little
reason,
smile.
Perhaps I'm voting yes on this.
Yeah.
No, but no, he's just look how smiley he is.
Look
at
how
big,
happy little guy.
Yeah.
Happy little zombie fish.
It's just why how could something like that cause any problems?
Exactly.
He's perfect. He's absolutely perfect. Look at him.
Oh boy.
Get those votes in there.
Yep. Still split. We have yet to we got through the whole stream without a unanimous poll. I take some pride in that, but maybe I shouldn't.
I think it's just we have learning opportunities.
Yes, we love learning opportunities.
Yes.
And you may or may not have noticed, chat, how I've been favoring these Secrets of Strixhaven Full Art Basics.
Yeah.
All right, poll accomplished. This time we have 4 votes in favor of yes, 1 votes in favor of no, and the yeses have it.
Yay!
We can, in fact, cast Gurmag Angler this way. Now, this may be confusing given what we just went through on the previous question with Torgar. And Torgar is probably understandably a little bit jealous about what's going on.
And maybe would be jealous of the big fish too.
Maybe wondering why we like the rules like Gurmag Angler better. So let's talk about how this is different. So the big difference here is that Delve is an alternate way to pay a mana cost. It is not an alternate cost or a cost reduction. So let's see how this plays out. We want to cast Gurmag Angler. Now, there are no choices to be made. There's no targets. There's no effects to divide. So we're going to skip right past all of that choosing and the legality check because there's nothing to check. And we're going to get right to the part of the show where we determine the Gurmag Angler's total cost. So we're going to start with the base cost of 6 and a black. Now, note that we have no effect right now that is reducing Gurmag Angler's cost or increasing Gurmag Angler's cost. So when we get to the part of the show where we ask for Trinisphere's input on how we're going to cast this spell, Trinisphere's like, you're paying 7 mana, I don't care, whatever, it's fine. So Trinisphere just ignores it completely. we have locked in our total cost at 6 and a black. So we are now going to get to the next step where we activate our mana abilities. We can turn these 2 swamps sideways to create 2 black mana. And then we get to the part of the show where we're going to start paying the costs. Now we have one cost that is the mana cost. So we first are going to contribute our 2 black mana to Gurmag Angler. We have 5 generic mana left to pay, and because Gurmag Angler has Delve, we can pay that 5 generic mana by exiling 5 cards from our graveyard. Right? And then, congrats, we have cast Gurmag Angler. So I hope that makes sense, right? Convoke, Delve, and Improvise are all kind of in their own separate little club where they're an alternate way to pay a mana cost. So even though you're not paying mana for it, the game kind of pretends that you are for the sake of things like Trinisphere, right? And so unfortunately, that's just kind of a thing that you kind of just need to know about those 3 mechanics because it is a little bit weird. But we're gonna move now. It's about really this is it, right? We've covered everything I want to cover. This is sort of these are the big takeaways, right? The big 5. So if you have any questions, start getting those in now. I would love to answer and clear up any confusion that you may have. But here are a few reminders to take away with you as you go about the rest of your day.
Screenshot it.
Yes.
You know, you can even hide we can hide Brad's face here just for a moment, so you can take your screenshots if you would like. Not that you don't want Brad's face in your screenshot, but you have an opportunity to take a screenshot here so that you can just save it in your phone, and then everything is all there. It's great.
Oh yeah, that's a good point, Nick and Man. That waterbending is another example of that. I should add that to this slide. Waterbending is because it's kind of like Convoke and Improvise stapled together.
Yeah.
All right, I'm back. All right, so first, casting spells and activating abilities is usually a pretty straightforward process, and you shouldn't need to step through all of these things for every spell you cast. However, knowing that there is a defined list of steps to follow will help you when things get complicated, right? Even if you don't memorize the list, and you don't have to memorize the list, knowing where you can find this information can make it easier for you to answer these questions on your own when they come up. And hopefully these examples that we walked through help give you a framework to answer these questions if you get stuck. Second, casting spells, activating abilities, and putting triggered abilities on the stack all follow a very similar process. Okay, so once you get a feel for how one of them works, almost certainly casting spells, then it's easy to apply those things you know to the other 2, right? Things like, you make all of your choices, choose modes and targets first, as you're, immediately after the thing is put on the stack, and then you pay the costs for it afterward, right? That's transferable across all of those processes, right? Third, the game checks to see if a spell is legal during the process of putting it on the stack and immediately before it resolves. However, the game doesn't really track what happens in between those 2 events, right? So for example, if I am trying to lightning bolt your Runeclaw Bear, right, you respond by making it hexproof, so now it's no longer a legal target for lightning bolt. If I can respond by making it lose all of abilities, so it's no longer hexproof, then even though your Runeclaw Bear was for a brief period of time not a legal target for lightning bolt, because we'd only check that information when it's being cast and when it's being resolved, my lightning bolt would still resolve, right? Fourth, replacement effects always apply immediately before the event they are trying to replace. They have to exist before that event occurs. So the big thing where this comes up, a replacement effect on one permanent will not affect a permanent entering at the same time as it. As a reminder, these are the effects that are worded like, as this thing enters as, this thing enters with. Conversely, Triggered abilities check the game state immediately after an event occurs to see if they should trigger. This means that a permanent entering the battlefield could cause the abilities of another permanent entering at the same time as it to trigger. And these triggered abilities, these are the ones that are worded when, whenever, or at a thing happens. Okay? All right. So that's the whole thing, friends. I know this was a long one. We appreciate you spending your Saturday morning and or afternoon with us.
It was like 2.5 hours. That was a great stream.
We
That's more than we usually stream.
I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope this answered some questions you may have. I am more than happy to stick around and continue answering questions if you have some. Otherwise, we'll catch you next time, friends.
Yeah. We'll see if there's anybody that has any questions here really quickly. But otherwise, we're going to get a raid started. We're going to see if we can send a raid over to Amazonian. Amy is live right now doing some Brawl, and we love Amy here. We love Amy. So yeah, we're gonna send some folks over there, and I'm very excited about it. So yeah, friends, you're so welcome to come in, and thank you so much for your great participation today. We really appreciate that. It makes us feel really good when our audience interacts with us. So thank you so much, everybody. And again, thank you for Gerudo for making this happen. We will see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern, where we're going to do some 1v1 sealed. And we'll see you all on Monday afternoon at 12 p.m. Eastern, where we're going to teach you a brand new card game, Cataclysm Arcade. Put those both on your calendars. We would love to see you back and hanging out with us again. But in the meantime, have a great weekend, everybody. Mwah! Goodbye.
Bye, friends.
I have sent the rate.
All right. I will hit stop stream.